I would like to call the meeting to order. Madam Clerk, are there any special intentions by any of the council members or the administration or anyone in the audience even?
I do.
Councilman Segura, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you. And I don't mean to maybe take some of Council Reyno's, I didn't know if he was not, I saw he mentioned it today on Facebook, but today being December 7th, the infamous Pearl Harbor, want to just keep in our minds and our prayers all the soldiers and civilians that were injured, killed, and had their lives turned around on that day to understand that they put a big sacrifice to keep this country safe, and we certainly thank them for doing so.
Thank you. Councilwoman DeFrances.
Now, and I think everyone on the council echoes your sentiment, Councilman Segura, and we thank you for bringing that forward. I do have some members of my family who need your prayers. My nephew had a baby recently, a very, very, very low-weight child who is at Lakeside Hospital. And the baby's name is Miles, if you could all pray for him, and hope that he will be able to put on enough weight at some point in the near future to bring the baby home. And my aunt, one of my mother's cousins that I grew up with them, and she was really always my aunt, just died Monday. So if we could keep my Tia Pierina Columban in your prayers as well, would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Are there any others?
Mayor.
Mayor Zahn, you have the floor, sir.
We have a longtime clerk of court and a clerk in the Code Enforcement Department, Ms. Joanne Damiano Ingram. She is employed with the City of Kenner for quite a few years. She is in ICU at Oshner in Kenner with a very severe case of pneumonia. So if we can just keep her in our prayers. And also our PIO, Mr. Bob Ross, has recently lost his brother. So we keep that in our prayers also as of last week, and just keep thinking about him and his family. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Reyno, would you please lead us in the prayer, sir?
As Councilman Segura said earlier, today's the 76th anniversary of Pearl Harbor Day. And as President Roosevelt declared it, a day that will live in infamy. So today's prayer is in remembrance. Let us bow our heads and remember that we are in the presence of the Lord. Dear God, not everything that happens in your world reflects your goodness and grace. You have given us freedom to choose, and with that freedom, sometimes we choose to do evil. Today, we remember a time of great evil in our world. We remember World War II. We also remember those who stood their grounds against great evil, those who fought here and on the battlefronts to ensure that that evil would not prevail. We thank you that in the hour of need, you gave men and women the strength and resolve to stand whatever the cost. May those brave souls who still remain here with us feel today your hand of favor and strength. In their last years here on earth, give them renewed hope and awareness of our gratitude for their bravery and sacrifice. May we never forget them, and may you honor them according to the grace you gave in those days and according to their response to that grace, both then and now. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen. Councilman Wilmot, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Madam Clerk, before we get started, can everyone in the back of the council chambers, can you hear well? Because to me, it seems like it's a little muffled, and I want to make sure that everybody can hear. And we're good? Okay, thank you. Motion by Councilman Segura, second by Councilman Klein. Motion, Councilman Segura, you have the floor, sir.
What this is to do is, and I'm sure everybody up here has somewhere in time gotten phone calls from residents who have seen construction work going on in subdivisions around the city by various contractors putting in presumably fiber optic cable underground. And these cables are for the intent of AT&T expansion work, but some of this work does cause inconvenience and in some cases some irritation to the property owners. So with the calls that I had received, I reached out to AT&T and they agreed to come tonight and just discuss the scope of the project and what their intentions are, how long it'll be, and how to resolve any of the issues that perhaps a resident would call any one of us to discuss the construction. So at this time, I'd like to call upon Mr. Wayne Stein, who is with AT&T.
Mr. Stein, may you and your company name and address. Mr. Stein, that mic is having a little difficulty. If you don't mind using the one in the middle. Thank you. Name and address, please.
Road extension in Ponchatoula, Louisiana.
Hi, my name is David Arbery, and my address is 301 Main Street, office out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Stein, or
Well, I'm going to do the talking at least for a little bit, and then we'll open up for questions. I'm David Arbery. Again, I'm the State Director for Corporate and External Affairs for AT&T Louisiana. Mr. Stein is our area manager, works in our construction and engineering team, and he's certainly been in contact with Councilman Segura. It's my pleasure to be here on behalf of our state president, Sonia Perez, and our more than 4,600 employees who work for AT&T Louisiana all across the state of Louisiana, just to share a little bit with you about our efforts, certainly as we're making expansion into Jefferson Parish and certainly in the city of Kenner. Thank you for inviting me. We've always enjoyed and appreciate the opportunity to work and invest in the city of Kenner, and we appreciate your continued interest in our deployment and our investment plans for your community. As you are likely aware, or possibly, about 2 years ago, we announced our plans to bring a 100% fiber to the home, FTTH, so to speak, AT&T fiber to this parish. In November of last year, we began to market this service to customers in the parish, including some of the areas in Kenner. And so we look at things from a regional standpoint of view, but we have begun to offer this AT&T fiber service into the city of Kenner. Today, we are marketing fiber into multiple locations that crosses into several of the council districts. Not 100%, we're continuing to grow and expand. What does that mean? It means that we're bringing the broadband, or the fiber is allowing us to increase our internet speeds, which in many cases goes as fast as 20 times faster than the average cable customer. You can download a song, if you have AT&T fiber, 25 songs in 1 second, or a 90-minute HD movie in less than 34 seconds. You can quickly access and stream the latest online games, movies, and other kinds of services that you may use the internet for. The ultra-fast speeds allows you to easily telecommute, video conference, upload, download photos, videos, connect faster to the cloud. What does that all mean? To get to this, it requires us to do a lot of construction work. Our crews continue to work day in and day out to expand this availability of that service, and we look forward to the opportunity to meet within our additional expansions and certainly go all across this particular community. While we do not talk specifically about exact deployment plans because things change on a day-to-day basis, budgets, et cetera, I can assure you that our investment follows the regulatory environments that welcome the investment. As we have appreciated the opportunity to work closely with you and your team and your staff and your permit office and all of those, we're able to bring these services to the constituents in the community who want faster and more reliable internet and broadband. In addition, we look at the balance of the customer needs, the overall experience, and our network infrastructure as we make those investment decisions. And following the decades of investments by the hardworking men of AT&T who call Louisiana home, our fiber optic footprint has grown tremendously. In fact, we have more than 1.7 million miles of strand of fiber optics covering this entire state. And that's part of the reason why you're getting the calls, because we're doing more and more investments here in this city. For decades, the demand of these high-speed connections have made possible through fiber optics was primarily targeting the business community. And now we're going more and more into the residential areas. And lastly, I'll say this. We see that both in landline connections and wireless connections, we're continuing to increase. As a matter of fact, the growth of people's utilization of smartphones, we have seen a more than 250,000% growth in data traveling across our wireless network in the recent years. What does that mean? That no matter what device customers are using, the delivery of services requires a robust fiber optic network. And so it required us to make more and more investments all across, taking some of the old copper lines and doing what we call an overbuild, and putting more fiber optics into the community. People are increasingly using their wired and wireless service for high-speed internet connectivity. The next phase of our investment we see is vital in places like Kenner, and the investment into what we call a small cell infrastructure. We have macro towers, very large, very tall, wireless network towers. But the next investment you'll see, and we'll be working with you and be coming back to you, is we're going to put microcells into the help densify network. These small cells will help us prepare what we call 5G, the new technology that's certainly on the cusp. And our long history in investing in Louisiana has been over 137 years, and we continue to want to expand and do more. And I will tell you, Wayne and his team have been very busy. Our contractors and subcontractors are going to be working, have been working, had a banner year in terms of the growth over the last year, this year, and we anticipate doing more in 2018 to help deliver products and services to increase these speeds. So Wayne may want to add something, but we're here to let you know that I certainly have a card. If we mess up a yard, we intend to fix it and to do it timely. We know oftentimes many of the areas are older areas, and it gets to be a little disruptive in the weather. It could be rain, it could be a lot of things, but we have always considered ourselves to be good neighbors and good stewards of the resources, and we want to continue to have that relationship with you. So I will leave my card certainly with each council member. We recently had an area manager who covered, from our standpoint, Leo Marsh. Some of you may know Leo. He retired after 35 years with our company. And so until such time that we backfill and find someone, it's hard to find someone to replace pretty quick who's been with our company 35 years. He knew everybody.
Yeah, so thank you, sir. And Councilman Segura, you have the floor.
Yes. Okay. I just want to thank you then. And real quick, if I can let Mr. Stein, I need you to just comment on a little bit of the remediation issues covered?
Prior to construction, one of our agreements with our contractor is to put door hangers on everybody's door a week in advance to let them know we're coming. We have a lot of crews in the area. Some are better than others, so if we have an issue where a yard not being cleaned up or mud's left somewhere, I'll leave you a contact number of our construction manager. He said feel free to call him or send him an email. He'll have someone on it the next day.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Sure.
Okay. Councilwoman DeFranchise, you have the floor. It's challenging, but we're gonna
I
have
can
to-
be loud if I have to. And thank goodness for Leo Marsh. I need to say that. First of all, I got to know Leo Marsh a long time ago when Ms. Perez actually first got here, and have known him since then, have worked closely with him. And I'm going to say something, it's slightly negative, but Leo took care of it, and I need to put this in perspective. I totally agree with you. We need to move forward. Times are changing so quickly. Fiber optics are the way to go, and that needs to be done. We had a slight problem in District 4. In District 4, Talbot and Vintage, the work was done, and it was done in a timely manner. The problem was not the work itself. It was coming back to undo the damage that was caused to the person's property. Now, the grass is one thing. The driveway was totally blocked with the orange netting and poles, and that man was not able to use his driveway and garage for I'm not talking a few weeks. I'm talking went on and on until he finally called my office and someone, mentioned it to me. I called Leo, and Leo got it started by the next day. So obviously that fell through the cracks. So the only thing I would like to suggest is the work is being done, like I said, very expeditiously, but we need to make sure that there's a follow-up to make sure that damage done to property that needs to be addressed is done in a timely manner, not to have use of your garage or driveway for months, 3 months, I think it was, is not acceptable, and I don't think you would believe that either. And the actual driveway had a big, gash in it that they had to make. So again, once the repairs were done, everyone was satisfied. It's just the time frame was not appropriate, and I think you agree with me. Again, I give Leo credit. In one day, we were able to move forward.
And thank you for letting us know. Leo did make me aware. I'm very aware. We monitor those kind of issues from public officials. Again, we're not a perfect company, but we're a good neighbor.
But I'm glad you said that Leo made you aware of it so that once you knew about it, you knew that certain steps had to be taken for the future.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for that.
Councilman Wilmot, you have the floor, sir. Yeah, I think it's on time.
Thank you, thank you. I just had a question. Well, actually, I want, if you will, describe the process. So if I'm a resident of Kenner and then, okay.
He would have a better understanding of the process. I'm sorry.
The process, I was saying, if I'm a resident of the city of Kenner and a lot of people just curious, not necessarily that they're having any problems or anything like that. I know AT&T is putting a large investment in doing what they're doing. So when you have citizens that see things that are abnormal, I just want them to understand, they might have paintings on sidewalks, some markings, they might have little flags sticking up, that type of thing. Might have people digging in the yards. If you will, describe the general
The first process would be the notification of the door hangers, let them know they're coming. With that, Louisiana One Call is called. All the utilities come out and locate your water, your gas, your sewer, your power, anything that's in the ground, existing telephone, existing Cablevision. That tends to take 3 to 4 days to get complete. Then you'll probably see the next phase is, material starting to show up and crews starting to show up. We try to do as much aerial work as possible, but a lot of times we're not allowed, for whatever reason, design doesn't allow us to do that, so we have to go buried. 90 to 95% of that buried work is directional drilled. to where all we have is a launch pit on one side and receiving pit on the other side, and nothing in the middle is disturbed other than a pothole to pull something up for above-ground fixture.
So you'll see well, actually, you get a notice on your door, might see markings on this concrete.
Correct.
Might see little flags, might see machinery in the area.
That is
And then you
correct.
might have some tubing that you're running through the ground.
Yeah.
Those types of things. And then when
Correct.
it's finished, what's our hopeful end product?
Hopeful end product is once the paint wears away from the locate, you'll never know we were there.
Right, no, but I'm talking about the fiber optics itself. That's what I'm,
When we get through, this is fiber to the home.
okay.
So it's 100% glass all the way to the resident's house, and it's a gigabyte of service.
And it's going to be crisp, I presume.
It's the latest and the greatest that technology has to offer today.
Appreciate it, thank you. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Councilman. Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir.
Thank y'all for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Michael.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, we've received a request this evening to amend the agenda to include an ordinance authorizing the purchase of Lot 14A, 14, 15, and 16, Square 9, Beachview Heights in Kenner Jefferson Parish, Louisiana. If I could get a motion and a second to suspend your rules tonight to amend the agenda.
Motion by Councilman Segura, second by Councilman Klein to amend the agenda.
Council members, please vote to amend your agenda tonight. Three more? Two more? Two more? One more? Just one more now. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 5-2 to suspend your rules to amend the agenda this evening. Mr. Chairman, if I could get a motion and a second to amend the agenda to include item 16L, please.
Motion by Councilman Segura, second by Councilman Klein to include L.
16L. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to object? Please come forward now. Hearing none, all council members. Yes, ma'am.
Are you to speak on 16L, Mr. Brown?
Mr. Chairman, what is 16L?
Madam Clerk, could you read that, please?
Yes, sir, I'll read it again for you, please.
Was
It's an-
that on the supplemental agenda?
No, sir, we're putting it on from the floor
From the
tonight.
floor.
We're voting to put it on from the floor. And it's an ordinance authorizing the purchase of Lot 14A, 14, 15, 16, Square 9, Beachview Heights, Kenner Jefferson Parish, Louisiana. It's on for first reading.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Hearing no other discussion, council members, you're now voting to amend the agenda to add the item this evening. Please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion fails 5-2. This requires a 7-0 vote in accordance with state law. Council members DeFranchise and Reyno are opposed. Under the consent agenda this evening, we have item 1, approval of minutes, the council meeting of November 16, 2017. Item 2 is approval of, we have none, approval of alcoholic beverage permit applications. Item 2A is a resolution granting an alcoholic beverage permit to Divine Mercy Catholic Church on February 24, 2018 at 4337 Salentini Parkway in Kenner, Louisiana. Item 3 is approval of bingo and public gathering applications. Item 3A is application number 2056-17, Divine Mercy Catholic Church to hold a public gathering on February 24, 2018, from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. for the purpose of a cook-off car show fundraiser at Divine Mercy Church at 4337 Salentini Parkway in Kenner, Louisiana. Item 3B is application number 2057-17, St. Elizabeth Ann Seton School to hold a public gathering on February 9, 2018, from 1:15 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. for the purpose of a Mardi Gras parade for pre-K 4 through kindergarten at St. Elizabeth Ann Seton School in Kenner, Louisiana. Item 4 is correspondence, reports from the mayor, CAO, or department heads. Item 4A, at the request of the administration, a report from Mayor Zahn.
Mayor Zahn, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Council Chairman. I just want to quickly give a quick sales tax report. Taxes paid in September collected by the sheriff in October. The city of Kenner was up 0.04%. I know it doesn't sound like a big percentage up, but I'd rather be up 0.4% than down 0.04%. And it's in spite of the issues that we continue to have that everyone complains about at the Esplanade Mall. The good news is that I guess that slight increase in our sales tax also shows a little bit of a promise in our planning department reports, where we have 255 requests for zoning verifications since January of this year. So having 255 requests for new things going on in the city of Kenner leads to my next part, that the Code Enforcement Department has issued 25 commercial new construction permits in 2017. The total construction cost will be close to about $643 million. That shows that we are continuing to move forward. As I cut ribbons throughout the city, I guess we haven't done anything since Thanksgiving, but before that, as you all know, we were averaging one a week. That is really, really promising as we continue to move Kenner forward. As people see the city of Kenner right now, that has nothing to do with sales tax, but hopefully will increase our sales tax, a holiday like Christmas, we've definitely come back with Christmases in Kenner this year. The Christmas Village was moved from District 1 to District 5, but to a more focal point area to see how it would be received. It has been received really, really well, and throughout most of the districts, we have put up Christmas lights. If you look at Williams Boulevard, Joe Yenny, Loyola, Vintage, Power, and other areas throughout the city, Williams Boulevard in your district, with banners presenting that Christmas is here and trying to charge the citizens a little bit with more of a destination for the city of Kenner where people will come and visit. I do think that the Christmas Village has been a huge success. We're getting good reports from the vendors, the food vendors, the craft vendors, and most importantly, the constituents. We have a lot of good reports coming in from the constituents that they're happy with what we've done. There are a few little snags here and there that we will address for next year, but being in Councilwoman Hand's district for the first time, I think she's happy with what we have. We're not going to forget about District 1, Councilman Carroll, because we are doing some things with those buildings down there to let those residents know also that we're remembering Christmases down there for them too. So as we continue to move forward, please visit the Christmas Village. Please continue to shop in Kenner, obviously, and everybody have a good Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Zahn. And Ms. Fauché, sometime next week, the 255 number that Mayor Zahn indicated to, will you be able to give me the breakdown per district where the businesses are?
On the new construction permits?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I can.
Yeah, so anytime next week will be fine.
Thank you.
And I think give it to all of us.
Okay.
So we all have
do
that
that.
information. Thank you. And also to address Mayor Zahn, as we said, the Christmas Village that is in District 5, Councilwoman Haynes' district is going well, having a lot of compliments. Obviously, when something moves from an area that has been for a long time, or if not a long time, for a number of years, there's always going to be some conversation as to the depletion. But as promised, the location where it was, none of the lights were taken down. We're actually in the process with the mayor and Mr. Maricoli to reevaluate the area to add more for next year. So it's not like it's going to be going away. Actually, it gives us an opportunity to have events on both sides of the city, at the lake and at the river. And next year, as we get more information on it, get more people involved, we will have that. So we're not looking at it as it has moved. We're looking at we're adding another location for the city of Kenner. So I just wanted to address that. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I have a motion by Councilmember DeFranco, second by Councilmember Wilmot on the consent agenda. Council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Under the public appearance agenda, we have item 9, public hearings for final passage. Item 9A is a public hearing regarding resolution number B16811, a resolution to determine whether the structures located at 2309 Kenner Avenue in Kenner, Louisiana shall be abated by repair, rehabilitation, demolition, or removal.
Motion by Councilman Carroll, second by Councilman Klein.
We have a motion tonight, sir, a request to remove this item from the agenda.
Motion by Councilman Carroll, second by Councilman Klein to remove from the agenda. Council, please vote.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0 to remove. Item 9B is a public hearing regarding resolution number B16844, a resolution calling a public hearing on December 7, 2017, to determine whether the structures located at 3101 Jasper Street in Kenner, Louisiana shall be abated by repair, rehabilitation, demolition, or removal.
Motion by Councilman Carroll, second by Councilwoman Hayne. Council, please vote.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0 to open your hearing. I believe the Code Enforcement Department has a presentation this evening.
Thank you. Mr. Walter, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. The 9A was removed because the property owner restored it, and he's in compliance with all code now, so we're going to have that. It's rehabilitated, and we'll be having people moving in soon. On this address, 3101 Jasper, the structure in question is a pile-supported slab structure located at the municipal address of 3101 Jasper. The property is owned by Wanda Brackens and Adam Washington Sr. On July 18, 2017, this property was found to be unsafe and dangerous under the building codes for the city of Kenner, as well as Section 5-57 of the Code of Ordinance for the city of Kenner. On September 14, 2017, a notice was sent certified mail to the property owners advising them of the property and building violations. The city of Kenner also contracted the services of an engineer who noted in his report, now retained by the city, that the following reasons of inadequate maintenance, dilapidation, and abandonment existed. Utilities are disconnected, has been so for 12 years. Majority of the windows and doors are not boarded. Sections of the aluminum fascia covering is missing and falling off, thus exposing the untreated boards to the elements. Evidence of a roof leak and a portion of the roof sheathing are rotten on the west side of the structure of the overhang. Section of the exterior sheathing has been dislodged from the structure on the west side of the building. There's a major hazard at the southwestern corner of the property where an existing cracked concrete slab exists. Based on our visual observations, the structure is a serious public hazard, and we recommend that the city take the steps necessary to declare it a public nuisance, have it abated by demolition, or brought up to current city codes and ordinance. After receiving notice, Mr. Washington came to the office, was met by us. He was advised what was needed in order to bring the structure into compliance, and he has never returned. No demolition permit has ever been applied for. There have been no attempts to bring the necessary documentation required to come into compliance of the building codes and ordinance. I might also add that an interior inspection of this structure reflects that following Katrina, the structure was flooded. They received road home money. The money was put into an attempted rehab. It was a case of contractor fraud. They attempted to add a room to the back without pile support, and it's pulling away the northwest corner of the building away from the original structure. They also removed the wall separating the front room from the kitchen without using any support or a proper header, and so the structure wall, the ceiling I'm sorry, is caving in. So there, we actually secured the structure and put signs on it for not to not enter because there was a danger of collapse. And that is the completion of our work.
Thank you, Mr. Walters. Motion by Councilman Carroll, second by Councilwoman Hand to open the public hearing.
You're closing, sir.
Close the public hearing. Council, please vote.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0 to close your hearing.
Is there the property owners, I had spoke to a gentleman prior to, sir, is there, would you like to come up and say something on behalf of this?
Mr. Chairman, if we could get your motion and second on the floor for approval.
Motion by Councilman Carroll, second by Councilman Hand for approval. Well, let's hold off. Let me hear about from the property owner first. Excuse me, sir, let the property owner go first. Name and address.
3101 Jasper, Kenner, Louisiana, 760.
And your name, sir?
Adam Washington.
Thank you, Mr. Washington.
Yeah, me and my contractor, we had went and talked to the planning and zone, trying to get the permit and stuff like that. Which, you know, just like I didn't have the house no 12 years. I wound up getting the house, it's been gone on 2 years. And when we came to try to get a permit for, they told us we had needed engineer to find out if the structure was good enough to go up with. So we wound up getting a letter from the engineer. Then when we came back to planning and zone, they told us we needed some other document. So it were two different people that we seen and spoke to about the house, you know. And just like I said, you know, the house, you know, the way it is right now, we was trying to, you know, get it straight and stuff like that. But so far as, you know, other thing and thing like that, the doors and stuff like that, that's on there. We're trying to, you know, windows and stuff like that, the fascia and stuff, that ain't nothing, you know. But so far as on the inside, you're looking at the outside of the house, but the inside of the house is perfect. It's just that the living room, one bedroom, and the bathroom. And the back part with whoever she add on to the back of it, yeah, I understand that. That need to come down because, you know, it was nothing but a patio back there. She add on to the house. And we told the guy from Planning and Zone that we was gonna tear it down because we know it wasn't the right foundation for it to come up on the you know, the back side where she add on to it.
So Mr. Washington, you know, as always, we, the city of Kenner, the code department, is never our position to do something that will be, you know, a heartache to the property owner. Mr. Walters gave his presentation, a lot of information that he gave as it relates to it from a safety standpoint, which is where we are from the city of Kenner and where we have to always be number one, safety for the citizens, for the people in the neighborhood. And based on Mr. Walters' presentation, there has not been a whole lot of conversation like some of the information you shared today. Obviously, it's not your fault, some of the things that went on, but since you are the owner, you are held responsible for it. And based on Mr. Walters, it's going to take some funding to be able to first alleviate the safety concerns that we have. And like I said, we're never in a rush to do this. We always want to give you an opportunity, but before we can even talk about that, as far as from a financial standpoint, to address the safety concerns, would you be able to address that in a timely manner? And the timely manner would have to be assessed by the code director for this. And I'm going to ask him also, is that even possible to do that? So first of all, from the financial standpoint, would you be able to do that?
Yes, I would.
And Mr. Walters, in your opinion, from a safety standpoint, is this an option that we can address today?
Mr. President, when he came to the office, he met with James Mohammed. It was explained to him that he had to bring an engineer's letter to the office indicating what if the property could be salvaged. Second, he had to bring in bank records indicating that he had funding available to him that he could complete the process. He also had to bring in an elevation certificate. This house is below elevation, and if the value of the house, coupled with the cost of repairs, where if the repairs exceeded it 50%, 50 to 51 to 49%, you'd also have to have it elevated. So then you have to add another 50 grand to have the whole house elevated, to come into code compliance. And nothing has ever been brought to our office by Mr. Washington.
So Mr. Washington, you know, and not trying to get into it from a financial end, and we don't know what your financial situation is, but obviously it will cost a little bit to get this into place. And based on Mr. Washington's presentation, the communication has not been there. So for us to have the confidence that you will be able to do this, that is where we are right now. That's where I am. It's something from District 1. Most of my colleagues are going to support my position on this, I would hope. So we normally give, and Mr. Walter, what is the length of time that we normally give people to be able to, before we start the actual process?
In the past, you have given a two-council meeting deferral, and we'd bring it back at that time to see if, which would be approximately 4 weeks, to see if he comes in and shows what he needs to fix the place up. But that was probably about 6 weeks ago that he came to the office, right, from the date I have, and still waiting.
So, Mr. Washington, you see where we are, and so you would have to have the letter from the engineer. You would have to have
Bank statements.
bank statements and
Money available to do the repairs. He has to have something from a contractor that would reflect what has to be done and what the cost would be associated to that. You'd have to have an elevation certificate.
And Mr. Wall, what do you think would be a fair amount of time for your office to feel that he's showing good faith to be able to accommodate these actions?
I think 4 weeks ought to give enough time to at least bring in some paperwork to indicate that he can make it happen.
So, Mr. Washington, a month. We're talking 2 council meetings for you to be able to, and we want to make sure that you get a list of the things that you're going to need to require before we proceed with this. We can hold it off for 2 council meetings, and we're going to give you the opportunity to have all of this documentation, all of these things to Mr. Walters in the code department. Would you think that's something you can?
Like I said, last time we came, me and my contractor came, we had the engineer.
So, Mr. Washington, we don't want to, I don't mean to cut you off, but we don't want to go back to rehash this. I'm just saying, will you be able to, within a month, 2-meeting time frame, to accommodate the code department with all of those items that Mr. Walters said will be required?
I would have it.
Okay, so that's where we're at today. So what has happened, we don't want to
Mr.
just,
President, one more thing. You have a gentleman in the audience now who actually bought the house at a tax sale, and I believe he was reimbursed for what he put out there. But he's also getting ready to go to the sheriff's office and ask for the home to go to auction, sheriff's auction, so he can get his money back out of it on his lien. So he's got more problems than just the city of Kenner tearing the house down.
right, and though that is something that's going to take place, it's not really part of what we are doing today, but thanks for that information. I'm glad, Mr. Washington, now you know, you may want to get some more information on that. But I think, in fairness, Mr. Walters is say that if we can do this within a month, 2-meeting time frame, then we'll be able to move forward what we have to do here, and then you will have that additional information to deal with the sheriff's department as it relates to the other liens and fines.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Washington.
thank you.
So I would ask my council mates to, oh yeah, sorry, Councilman Klein, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Washington, can you go back up to the mic, please? I got a couple questions from Mr. Walter first. You mentioned something about the elevation. That house is not new, is it? Okay, and it's been at that elevation the whole time? I understand, but is one of the reasons why the city would like to tear the house down is because it's not at the proper elevation? No? I'm sorry. You said no or yes? Okay.
The condition of the house.
Okay.
The house has not been it has not been inhabited for 12 years.
All right. Now, let me ask you this. Has code been inside the house to check the inside of
Yes,
the
sir.
house? Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
And then we tried to secure the house to keep other people from coming. I think a family member, the owner of the house, she's died, right?
Previous owner,
Brackens.
the previous owner,
Right.
before I
She,
got to it.
She became homeless.
Okay. Let me ask you this. I just want to make sure I understand you correctly. Mr. Washington, you don't own the house right now? Is that what you're saying? Because it's been
No, I think the house was donated to him.
donated to him, so he's the owner. Is that correct?
Right.
All right. Can I ask the code department to give him something in writing as to what he needs to be done, or what he needs to do, so there will be no misunderstanding when he comes back before the council? Is that a fair thing you can do for us? All right. Now, Mr. Washington, you understand what we're saying? That the city now needs you to do something on that house.
I understand what they're saying, but what I'm saying is, the house has been there, just like you said, 67 years. All right? I used to live back there in Lancaster Manor on 33rd. Okay, what they did through there, they raised the street up. Just like I said, when we came and talked to the code enforcement, he the one said that we need to get an engineer. He went through the house. He said it was crack up in the house. The engineer, gave us a letter saying that nothing was wrong with the slab. The slab not crack or nothing like that.
Well, you have
I don't know who they're sitting in over there or whatever, but just like I said,
Will have to be elevated.
I don't figure, the house, his grandfather in already. I don't figure it should be raised because there ain't nothing really wrong with the house to me.
You had mentioned something about your address. Are you living in that house, or is it empty right now?
No, the house is empty.
Empty, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
The value of the repairs.
And the house is not falling down or nothing like that, the way he putting it.
Okay.
The house is solid in structure.
Okay.
Just be, he looking at the part, what she add on to the back, which I said, some jack leg, just like he said, she was mental disturbed. Some jack leg came back there and add on to it. She had to add on to it.
I understand.
And just like I said,
You have the funding now to try to bring this house up to code?
yeah, that's why I came to get a permit, and that's when they shut me down.
Okay. And did you have a letter from a qualified engineer, certified
do.
engineer? Okay. All right. Well, Mr. Walter's going to give you a written list, so you'll have it, and give it to your engineer so you can come back in 30 days and tell us what progress you made.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. So I'm going to ask for a 2-meeting deferral, and I would ask for your support on this. So motion by Councilman Carroll, second by Councilwoman Hand for a 2-meeting deferral on the property. Council, please vote.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0 for a 2-meeting deferral. Item 10 is opening of bids. We have none. Item 11 is reclassification of zoning for final passage. We have none. Item 12 is other ordinances for final passage. Item 12A is summary ordinance number 12,316, an ordinance repealing in its entirety Chapter 5, Article 4, Flood Damage Prevention Ordinance of the City of Kenner Code of Ordinances, and adopting a new Chapter 5, Article 4, Flood Damage Prevention Ordinance in order to comply with the requirements of the Federal Emergency Management FEMA and the National Flood Insurance Program, NFIP, and provide for related matters.
Motion by Councilman Segura, second by Councilman Wilmot. Councilman Segura, you have the floor, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is legislation that you are all going to be very thankful about. You've heard for many years now, FEMA has been restudying the flood elevations of this general region. And we had meetings last year here in this council chamber, and I hope some of y'all might have attended, where the floodplain representatives from Jefferson Parish were here to look at each address of a house if you lived in, to give you the understanding of what the change of that elevation on your property will be, to also affect the ratings for the flood insurance. At the conclusion of FEMA's work, about 97% of the city will now go under an X rating. X rating is the lowest premium for flood insurance available. So if you are paying hefty fees for flood insurance now, once we pass this tonight, hopefully, I'm sure everybody's going to vote for it, but you will then be part of FEMA's change, and your homeowners or flood insurance will be contacting you to tell you your new lower rates. With that, keep that in mind. I've spoken with several insurance companies, and they've assured that they will take that initiative once this is passed to start that process. But don't wait entirely for them. Take the initiative to reach out to your flood insurance provider through your homeowners or whatever, and make sure that they are starting that process, because this will lower your flood insurance rates tremendously if you've been in one of these higher ratings in the city. So this is the culmination of many, many years of work that FEMA, Jefferson Parish, City of Kenner has done to build up our drainage systems, our pumping stations, and the things that we knew we could do to get the water out of our city faster and more efficiently, to please FEMA to know that they can now feel comfortable that we are in a very small percentage of possibility of flooding again. So I want to certainly thank the parish, Councilman or Mayor Zahn, when he was there, I'm sure it had a lot to do with making sure the parish got the funds to keep the pumping station modifications, the drainage line improvements. A lot of times you'll see us somewhere in the city digging up drain lines, and that's because we're putting in larger pipe for this purpose, to get the water out of the streets, hopefully not in the houses, and get it out of here fast enough, and that way FEMA is satisfied that we can qualify for the lowest flood premium that they offer. So please follow this up in the next month to two at the latest, because once we approve this, FEMA still has to do a final blessing, but this is for them, they need us to approve, and then they'll do their part. Jefferson Parish has already approved Jefferson Parish Council has already approved this language for the unincorporated area of Jefferson. So this is what we need to do now to invoke it for the Corporation of Kenner. It's great news. I want to, again, thank everybody that had anything to do with getting the monies to put in place and get the equipments upgraded so that we could prove to FEMA that we can get the water out of here quicker. So with that, I don't know if the administration had anything that they wanted to add on this. Good, thank you. So I urge all the council members to vote for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman DeFranchise, you have the floor.
I just would like to give Ms. Russell a chance to explain something that came up earlier, and that is many people wondered, Kenner was very progressive in the way they moved quickly to get our floodplain maps done. And and that was completed quite a while ago. So many people would approach me, and I'm sure other council members as well, to try to understand, since we had completed the process quite a while ago, why it was taking so long and why we just hadn't heard from FEMA directly that our floodplain maps were approved. So Ms. Russell, if you could explain I know that you can do so quickly to the public to explain why it's taken this long for our floodplain maps to be approved, despite the fact that the work was done quite a while ago.
Well, I think Mr. Walther could better address that. What I can explain is that in early August of this year, we received a letter from FEMA advising us that we had a certain window of time within which we had to adopt this legislation. So we're well within that time period. I believe February 2nd. They give us 6 months, so February 2nd is when we have to have this enacted. So we're ahead of schedule, but I think Mr. Walter could address why it took so long.
Mr. Walters, if you could, a lot of people didn't understand those windows of opportunity that we had spoken about earlier, Ms.
Well,
Purcell and I and the mayor.
But local government has no control over
Exactly.
FEMA. And the flood maps, although they were drawn probably 2 or 3 years ago, they've been that long expecting them. And, I mean, New Orleans had theirs several years ago.
But we can't submit them directly, is what I wanted people to know, despite the fact
No, we
that
have-
we had completed the work for Kenner's floodplain maps. We don't have the power or the ability to go to FEMA or to the federal government directly. We had to go through a process. It's an indirect process, if you want to call it that, where Kenner can't do it directly themselves, but has to go through Jefferson Parish. Am I correct?
They told us when the maps would be available. And there was a 6-month span of time for us to adopt the maps, and that's what y'all are voting on now. And the maps will go into effect February 2nd.
There was also an appeal process by which homeowners could challenge the maps and ask FEMA questions, and that period has also elapsed. So that may have been what took some time, is that FEMA had to do what they had to do. And then, of course, we had meetings that you attended, several of you attended. So that process, took a little while.
I just thought it was important for the public to understand what the process really was, because they thought, once we did the work, you give the federal government your your maps, and then you move forward, and that's not what it was. So I want to thank you, Mr. Walters, for explaining to the public the process which this city had to go through in order to make it happen. Thank you.
Ms. Fauché, I have a question. As far as it relates to the information that Councilman Segura and Mr. Walter just explained, for the citizens of Kenner and the Kenner store, or maybe on our website, would it be possible for us to put the copy of the map or any other information?
We can put some information and a link to the maps themselves. I think if we tried to duplicate that on our servers, it might be a challenge. But if we can provide them with information, some basic information, as well as access. I think you and I might have talked about this earlier on when the maps were in the works. So I think this is and I'll work with the legal department and Mr. Walter, but we will get information regarding it, along with there's some how-to information available at the federal government website on what to do, how to figure out if it's changed, and what to do, and how to contact your insurance company. So following up on what Mr. Segura was saying, we'll be happy to put that on the website.
Hey, thank you very much. And I think any information that people can get right now will be fantastic, and they'll be able to further their investigation, if they have to be, with either the parish or the state or the federal government, if need be.
Okay, will do.
Thank you, ma'am. Motion by Councilman Segura, Councilman Segura.
Just real quick, and kind of follow up what you're just saying. Yeah, those maps are really digitally very hard to replicate somewhere else. The link that Ms. Fauché, I'm sure, can put on our site, if it's not, it should have been there, I thought already, takes them to Jefferson Parish, and they can then go on there, put in their address, and it'll pull up their location, give them the zone they're in, and let them know what their new rating will be. So, yeah, it's out there, but through Jefferson Parish website that anybody can get to it. In fact, the meetings, as we talked about last year, that's what did. We had Jefferson Parish come here with computers, and they linked in, and people could give them their address, and they would show them what zone they would now potentially go into. I agree that everybody should go look at it, but like I said, it's from that point, it was like 97% of the city was going to X. So the other percent that may not, I sympathize and I feel sorry. I don't know what the answer is until we get more information, perhaps from FEMA, and then between us and the parish can figure out why those areas are not draining fast enough to meet their guidelines, and then we'll work to figure out what we need to do to speed that up.
Thank you, sir. And as far as it not being on there now, I think from talking to Ms. Fauché, we decided to err on the side of caution, just to make sure that what we put up there would be something that's legitimate and binding. We didn't want to just put stuff up that was just going to, be, questioned in the future. So I think we are where we are, and I think now will be a fantastic time. Thank you, ma'am. Motion by Councilman Segura, second by Councilman Wilmot to approve. Council, please vote.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 12B is summary ordinance number 12,317, an ordinance amending the 2017-2018 capital budget to allocate $396,500 from the sale of the property to capital accounts in the Fire Department, Police Department, and Loss Fund.
Motion by Councilman Segura, second by Councilwoman DeFranchise. Councilman Segura, you have the floor.
Thank you. First, I'm going to start with just a little bit of back history on how monies are moved around with sale of property. Prior to myself and several other members up here coming on the council, the sale of property for city immovable property was, an ordinance was passed, and it dedicated that money to the councilman whose district the land was in. So, subsequently, there were some council members who got millions of dollars put into their operating account because of the sale of those lands which took place in their districts. That process does not go well with transparency of government, because a lot of that money is not put before these council meetings for them to be spent. When I came on the council, Councilman Conley and myself saw that as a big problem, and we started working on changing that. And we came up with an amendment to that ordinance so that we could change. And another underwriting factor was, in our charter, it says the council shall systematically fund the police department. In '74, after the charter was put in place, the council, in its wisdom, passed an ordinance dedicating 21% of undedicated funds to the police. Some time went by, Chief Lentini managed to get up to additional 3% to 24%. Undedicated funds is just what that means. That's funds that come in and are not already dedicated to go somewhere else. Well, that typically is only sales tax money. So what happens is, in this case, with that ordinance that dedicated the money from the sale of those lands to the councilman whose district that land was in, the police department never got their true entitled 24%. So we've changed that and put in there, and this council at the time voted to change this so that the police would get their 24%, and then the additional 76% was going to go somewhere else. In true fashion that we tried to figure out a way to do it, we came up with the plan, and again, it was voted on by the members of this council, minus one or two, I think, that we would put this money in an account that the council would have, and then at a vote of a council meeting and at least a four-member vote, that the money could then be moved around. So the sale of land since that point is where this money that we're talking about in this ordinance is predominantly coming from. This was Waffle House sale in District 2. Land next to Ronnie Lamarck's, where he's building a $30 million facility, again, in District 2. But because of the plan, it went into this block of funds, and then the council would decide where to put it. We didn't have a clear path to know which project was most warranted or not. We just parked it there and said, let's park it until we can figure out what's the best place to put it. So what we have in this is a request to move this money to a project or fund issues that are very, very prevalently needed as we speak. And that is, take the police department's 24, change it to 33, raise it up, give our fire department 33%, which they don't get anything other than some millage money, and then our loss fund, which is used to pay for things that are legally claims against the city. But I'm going to yield to the mayor and his staff to talk more on that because they have the more up-to-date understanding of what the loss fund problem is. And if Mr. Mayor, your staff can answer that, I just want to go give you that right now.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Reno light is on. Would you want to wait till he presents his, and then you can, or you and your staff can address it? Mayor Zahn, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Council Chairman. I appreciate it. I guess I need to first start off with, I don't understand why the city and why anyone would want to build any building which is almost $1 million at 5,000 square feet, which happens to be next to Councilman Reno's business suites in this area where it's proposed to be built, on a pocket park that our children use. Most currently, Blue Eagle Soccer uses that pocket park. That is the problem here tonight, and the campaign of miscommunication that has been out here for the last month of why we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing, but why we want to do tonight what we should be doing. I'll give you a little history on resource centers. The city has 2 active resource centers. You do have 3, one that's closed, one that's not really a resource center, AP Clay. It's used more as a community development, community center. You have Martin Luther King in your district, Councilman Carroll, and in District 3, we have the Hispanic Resource Center. Regardless of the names, these centers provide services to all of our citizens. They're not one group specifically. The history of the funding came starting with Louis Congemi. Louis Congemi was the mayor at the time who put about $80,000 into a capital budget. And I think sometimes we start to get a little confused, or the misrepresentation by some is that capital may be different than some promised monies. In 2003, he put $80,000 into capital. I was a District 3 councilman at one time, from 2006 to 2012. I put in $192,000, 400 went into that account. That was done in 2008, 2009. The plan at that time, when I was the councilman, I don't know what happened after I left, but the plan was to purchase property near the Hispanic Resource Center. It's not the property, unfortunately, that failed tonight, which is very, very unfortunate and disappointing that anyone would not want to purchase property for the Hispanic Resource Center and the Hispanic community in District 3 in the city of Kenner. Right now, we have $396,000 in an account that has just really been basically through ordinance, a promise, not in capital budget, for the Kenner Police Department, Kenner Fire Department, and a loss fund. We had 2 things up tonight. One was the property that failed. Hopefully the second thing doesn't fail, because this is the things that we need for our city. Bricks and mortars that the council wants to eventually build, any building in the city of Kenner, does not provide services. Our services are provided by our people that we have in any type of building that we have right now, or we could future have for the city of Kenner. I have reached out to numerous people in the Hispanic community. The Hispanic Chamber is one of those groups. The Hispanic Chamber, who Mara Pineda is married to one of our employees in the city of Kenner, who's very involved in the Hispanic Chamber, has told me that she's very supportive of the ideas. I have spoken to Dr. Madrigal of the Hispanic community with HISPAC. I explained the situation to him, and he felt a lot more comfortable yesterday when I had that conversation with him also. Last night that you were at, Councilman Carroll and Councilman Han and Councilman Segura, you were with me when I discussed to the Hispanic community at a Christmas party what we plan on doing. You weren't there yet when I did it, but they were very, very comfortable with what we did. Right now, the Hispanic Resource Center in the building that does need to be addressed, I do recognize that. That's why I want to purchase the property. It costs us $6,000 a month. That's for a building that Councilman DeFrancis did point out to me that's poorly insulated. So yes, the cost is a little bit higher when it's not insulated properly. But when you want to build a almost 5,000 square foot new building, that's going to probably raise that over to $6,000. Speaking with the Community Services Director, we do not have that type of money. We don't have people to man this new center. I'm not saying that we shouldn't build anything in the future. What I'm saying right now, and this council has seen what this administration has done, we have made sure that we scratched plans for a $1.3 million building, not just this one, in your district, by Public Works, which is for what? For the city of Kenner, to house outside generators. I don't think we need that. I don't think we need that building. I don't think we need any new buildings right now. This is not an anti-Hispanic movement, especially when I propose with the majority of this council, supermajority of this council, the purchase of a piece of land next to it that we have capital funding for. We have needs in the city that start with police, fire, and usually Public Works. Those are the three entities that attract residents and businesses to the city of Kenner. I'm going to mix in a loss fund instead of Public Works, because I'll get to that in a minute, of how we're going to handle Public Works capital improvements. We have had 2 lawsuits in this last year, 2 generated by Councilman Reyno. The 2 lawsuits was one telling me to instruct Lee Roussel to talk to him. We won, because we can't tell Lee Roussel to do that. The other lawsuit is an unconstitutional charter amendment that the federal government is more than likely going to rule unconstitutional. That was proposed not by most of this council, but was passed by the city of Kenner residents, which we recognized, we defended, but the federal government tells us what to do when it comes to these types of things. That's going to be $160,000 that we have to pay. If we don't have a loss fund to pay those types of bills, we will look to the council, the city council, because we didn't originate these bills. We didn't originate these lawsuits. If you look at how city government or any government is run, that cost, that lawsuit cost, that invoice goes back to the department that creates the problem. Unfortunately, my friends, that would have to come back to you all, because we don't have it. I don't want to do that. I want a loss fund. Each and every one of you out there, I believe, would agree with me that we should have a loss fund. We keep our city whole by doing that. We keep our police department capital improvements. We keep our fire department with capital improvements. Y'all saw the bunker gear. You may not have, Councilman Hand, because I don't think you were here, but y'all saw the bunker gear that the fire department had to use in the past. Y'all have addressed that. We thank you for that. I'm going to eventually pull up 2 fire trucks and show you a new one and the one that we have right now. I think you're going to see the bunker gear all over again. We need to start these things for the Kenner Fire Department. The Kenner Fire Department chief is here tonight to speak with Kenner firefighters in the audience. The Kenner police, he'll speak for the administration. I'm not going to speak for the chief of police. The chief of police is here, I'm sure, to tell you his capital needs in the many discussions I've had with those 2 chiefs. If the council continues to want to build buildings and put your name on it along with my name, I'm out. I don't need a plaque on a building. I need police and fire. I need a loss fund. And I need a sound, also, Public Works Department. Why didn't I include Public Works in this legislation tonight? Because we're going to have a great year next year, guys. December 31st of this year, our bonds are paid off for our road millage. We're going to have some money roll in that we no longer have to pay the bond on. The millage is going to continue. And this was a question when I was out there promoting the renewal, I'll stress that, the renewal of a millage. I said, you're going to have it for 10 years, we're going to pay it off, the bonds, but we're going to be in a position to fix roads throughout the city of Kenner. That falls under Public Works. You all passed TNC new ordinances. We're going to start January 1st through code enforcement with warnings to let them know and educate the cabs. By February or March, because it's going to be within a quarter, we will start to see the monies roll in from that service also, which has to be spent on roads. So we'll spend that on roads. That's helping us with our public works. So not that I'm not worried about public works, I'm more worried about the lawsuits that we have to pay. I'm more worried about our residents having a police officer that will put the criminals behind bars like they do. I'm more worried about the fire department keeping our residents safe in their roles and keeping fires suppressed. That is important to me. I know that's important to the majority of this council. I know this is what the council, I hopefully feel, agrees with me. This is in no means an anti-Hispanic movement. Blue Eagle Soccer uses that property where the Resource Center has been proposed to go. Blue Eagle Soccer is a Hispanic soccer club. That doesn't sound anti-Hispanic. Who signed the CEA? I did. That is pro-Hispanic for the Hispanic community, keeping those kids off the street. They're here tonight to speak in favor of what we've done. Adjacent to that pocket park is apartment complexes, predominantly Hispanic. Those kids go into that pocket park. So why don't I want to put a $5,000, almost $1 million building on that pocket park? Because the Hispanic population is using it. They're using it right now. I think that's what's important for what we're doing. So I challenge anyone here tonight that comes up here and tells me that this is an anti-Hispanic movement. It is not. I was one of the guys, along with former Mayor Louis Congemi, that put money away. I'm one of the guys with my name on that legislation tonight, and I thank the 5 of you all for putting your names on it. I thank the 5 of you all, Han, Klein, Wilmont, Segura, and Carroll, for putting your vote to purchase that property. I was trying to do that tonight with y'all's help because we would beat the Christmas rush, but I guess we'll look at that after the first of the year for next council meeting, because it still has to go into first reading for next council meeting, and then we have to vote on it after the first of the year. That is an anti-Hispanic movement when you're not for that. That's anti-Hispanic. I challenge anyone to tell me that tonight that we have been, or the 5 of you all have been anti-Hispanic. This is a very big city. This is a city that we have multicultural denominations that come before us and have needs. I was the first mayor to hire a diversity coordinator. Nobody's ever done that before. Mr. Raphael Sadi, who happens to be Hispanic and also Indian. That doesn't sound too anti-Hispanic. We are going to continue to reach out to the Hispanic community with y'all's help and make sure that the city of Kenner realizes nothing new will be built in a building structure in the city of Kenner until we address our current needs. It's a $60 million business we're running, guys. Y'all are the board of directors, I'm the CEO. We all work together and we make the city sound. With that, I'd like to call up, if you don't mind, the fire chief, and if the police chief cares to weigh in, I'm sure everybody would appreciate it.
Yeah,
Excuse me,
That's fine.
Councilman,
He's part of my discussion now.
yes.
President Carroll, if I may, point of order, I had the floor, I yielded it to the mayor, so I would still have the floor when he's finished.
And the fire chief works for the administration, so he's part of my discussion. The police chief is not.
No, Councilman Segura, I'm going to give it to Councilman Reno. I know you had the floor. We established him going next after the mayor, and I think it'd be right to let Councilman Councilman Reno have his say right now. Councilman Reno, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you for acknowledging me, because you were going to give the mic to me and I yielded to the mayor. So I just want to clarify that. What failed tonight was to put something on the floor we didn't vote on anything. It was actually to put something on the agenda from the floor. That's what failed tonight, so I want to clarify that. I also want to clarify, before I start going into everything that I want to talk about on the Hispanic Resource Center and clarify some things, is the lawsuits that the mayor alluded to. First of all, it was the employees of the city of Kenner that filed a lawsuit against Kenner as far as a political lawsuit. They believed that it was illegal. So for the mayor to say that I filed that lawsuit, I didn't file. I enjoined on the part of the lawsuit to make sure that the city was doing their job in defending the lawsuit. So that's what I did. And as far as the other issue, I didn't lose that. The judge said that she wanted to hear it. They wanted me to refile, and I decided at that time not to refile. So I wanted to clarify that. Now, getting to the Hispanic Resource Center and specifically the money that we're talking about tonight. On June 15th of 2006, ordinance number 9325 was adopted by that then council. It was a motion by Councilmember Stagney and second by Councilmember Laverine. And this actually took monies from sales when the city would sell property. It basically stated that the money on the sale of property in a district, the money would stay in that district, okay? On October 16th, 2014, that ordinance was rescinded and a new ordinance, number 10,834, went into effect. And again, it was also approved by this council. And the numbers that Councilmember Segura talked about, 24% goes to the police department because that is our funding formula. 24% of all undedicated revenue goes to the police, and 76% of the revenues stay in the city coffers. This ordinance states that these revenues, when we sell property, we're selling capital, that they are to be put back into a capital. It clearly states, it says, shall be dedicated to the city of Kenner capital asset improvement expenditures. So in this ordinance, it's telling us where this money has to be spent. Now, when this legislation was passed, there was some question because they didn't put in the wording that the money is to be spent on capital, but only when it's approved by a majority of this council. It can't be spent by the mayor. It has to be approved by this council. So on the 21st of May, 2015, and I know we have a couple of council members here who weren't on the council at that time, so I'm trying to clarify that for them. It says, dedicated to the city of Kenner capital asset improvement expenditures to be expended only upon a majority vote of the council after consideration of a specific project or acquisition of a specific asset. As a business owner, if you're selling assets, you're selling land or business or buildings, okay? You want to reinvest that back into land and buildings. You don't want to use that for daily operating expenses. That's not a good business move. In the private sector, if somebody owned a whole bunch of buildings and started selling them and used it for overhead money, the banks would be going, wait a minute, what are you doing? That's just not a common practice. Now, regarding those two sales that Council Member Segura said that were in District 2, remember, these monies were best used for citywide. That's why these ordinances took place, because we felt as a council that it was better to find citywide projects rather than leave the money in one specific council district. So resolution number B16676 which was passed on the 18th of February, 2016, regarding the proceeds from the sale of the streets next to Lamarck Ford, of which it was sold for $390,000. 24% went to the police department. The remaining $263,500, Section 1, the council hereby resolves the available funding in the amount of $263,500 is hereby approved for expenditure on a capital project for the construction of a new Hispanic Resource Center in Council District 3 on property owned by the city of Kenner. We already own the property. We don't have to buy new property. This was signed and approved by the then council on the 18th day of February 2016. Resolution number B 16736, again, this was in regards to the sale of the property to the Waffle House, of which, after the funds went to KPD, their 24%, the remaining 76%, of that 76%, $133,000 was available. This council resolved on the 15th of September, 2016, the available funding in the amount of $133,000 is hereby approved for expenditure on a capital project for the construction of a new Hispanic Resource Center in Council District 3 on property owned by the city of Kenner. According to the accounting that I received from our CFO on January 19th, 2017, there is an account set up for the Hispanic Resource Center. It's not dated when that account was set up. It's account number 3558-085-5554-1153. In that account was $67,400. There was another amount set up for $97,926.50. There was another account set up which had an $80,000 balance. Then you add in the two resolutions that I just talked about that identified the money. One was for $263,500, and the other one was for $133,000. Gave a total available funds to build, that were dedicated to build the new Hispanic Resource Center, of $641,826.50. Anybody that wants to look, they can look on the council meeting of 10/16 of 14, where they talked about changing this ordinance, and on 5/21 of 15. Both of those are available on KTV. Now, to move us further down the line as to where we are right now, in December of 2015, an agreement was signed with Seisler Thompson Brown Architectural Regional Design Group. That agreement was signed by then Mayor Mike Yenny on designing a building of approximately 3,822 square feet to be built on the property identified by the Pocket Park that is on 39th in Florida. I don't have a picture of that property, but the city owns the property from 39th Street to 40th Street. They own that entire square, I guess is the best way to explain it, of ground, including a street that has not been developed. They own the property where the street goes. Now, on 40th Street, the city built a new fire station, so we still own the property from the back of the fire station all the way to 39th Street. This original contract with the architectural firm was in the amount of not to exceed $79,737. Again, this contract was signed and dated by then Mayor Michael S. Yenny. Now we move into January of this year. In January of this year, Sizela said, hey, we need to do some additional work on here, and this agreement is going to increase in fees. And this agreement was written up, drafted up, and it said Michael G. Segure, acting mayor. That was scratched out. Handwritten in was B. E. Benzon III, and initialed. This increased this contract from a maximum of $79,000 to a maximum of $91,103. Again, this agreement was signed by Mayor Zahn on 1/30/17. If Mayor Zahn had no intentions of ever building this building on this property, which again, these plans were designed for this property, I'm a little confused as we use taxpayer dollars and spend additional money. At that time, it could have easily been said, you know what, we're not going to build it there. That's prior mayors that wanted to build it there, prior administrations, but he signed it. To give you a little history on the Hispanic Resource Center, the Hispanic Resource Center started under the administration of then Mayor Louis Kangemi. In June of 2003, it was made part of the congressional record. It says, today the city of Kenner crowns its celebration of June as Hispanic Heritage Month with the grand opening of its Hispanic Resource Center, the first of its kind in Louisiana. I am honored to recognize this landmark event in my district. I'm not saying that Mayor Zahn is against the Hispanic community or anybody. What I'm saying is that we have the only Hispanic Resource Center in Louisiana and the only one that's on the congressional record. And I wanted to make sure that the audience understood that. In September of 2017, this administration entered into a cooperative endeavor agreement between the City of Kenner and the Blue Eagle Soccer Association. As Mayor Yenny has previously stated, this park is in District 3. I'm here to say that at no time was I called in, asked, or anything as to my position of leasing this park or entering into a cooperative endeavor agreement with Blue Eagle Soccer Association. I'm 100% behind the children. I'm 100% behind the Blue Eagle Soccer Club and them using part of this land to do this. I just think that out of common courtesy, I would have been invited and we could have discussed this a little bit more. Now, getting to the actual ordinance that we're talking about. The original ordinance was put on first reading on 10/19/17, and in that, it said that a third of the proceeds, if we take this money, would go to the Kenner Police Department. A third would go into the City of Kenner's general fund. Now, that's not very transparent, is it? I think the original ordinance talked about transparency, talked about selling assets and making sure that it was transparent where those funds were going when those assets were sold. And then it says 1/3 would be dedicated to a loss fund. Again, a loss fund is not capital, it is overhead, and neither are these other two items on here. However, the police department could choose to use their money for capital, which I have to say thanks to Chief Glazer, because anytime he's gotten funds like this, he's usually put them in capital. When this actually came out again on 11/2/17, which I believe it was deferred, it changed from, the item number 2 changed from the city general fund to the Kenner Fire Department. Again, it's not identified as capital. There's been some comments that the city needs this money. Maybe not tonight, but it's been said that it needs this money, and I know that there's a lot of money left over in the BP fund that was dedicated to projects. Mayor Zahn talked about one building to store generators. Well, actually, just to clarify that, the generator warehouse was a separate $150,000 item to do design work on a building to house generators near the property where the Public Works is. The Building D behind the Public Works building was $1,500,000, and that was to replace a building that is falling down that is less than 4,000 square feet. And they want to reuse the slab, of which I was against this, and I voted against it. But I just wanted to let you know that there are monies out there. I'm going to finish with a statement. The city of Kenner has a long-standing tradition throughout its modern history of catering to the needs of its citizens that constitute a significant percentage of its population's demographics. When the African American population reached a percentage of approximately 16%, a minority councilmatic district was created, and millions of federal community development dollars were targeted for brick and mortar, public amenities, and that district for playgrounds, infrastructure improvements, and much more. When the percentage of Kenner citizens under 18 years of age in the 1980 U.S. Census reached over 20%, the city embarked on expenditures of millions of dollars in every councilmatic district to build more playgrounds, gymnasiums, to accommodate the recreational programs per capita and per square mile. This is the largest in any other city in Louisiana. And when Kenner's senior citizens exceeded 8% in the 80s and was a growing demographic, the city embarked on major expenditures to develop a first-class senior citizen center, adding transportation vehicles and expanding programs and services. In the 2010 census, Kenner had a Hispanic demographic of over 22%, which is approximately 3 times that of the 1980 census, and continues to be a growing demographic. And yet the city has yet to create a permanent facility to accommodate the services and programs to serve that growing population of our citizens. I admit some steps have been taken towards these goals. In 2003, property and trailers were purchased for a temporary site at 4312 Florida Avenue. Again, in 2003, as I explained, our Hispanic Resource Center was listed on the congressional record. In 2015, a parcel of city-owned land was identified as the new location for the permanent home for the Hispanic Resource Center. This was city-owned property we didn't have to buy, and a sign was erected to inform citizens of the new Hispanic Resource Center future home. That property, while I put it on the table that that would be a great piece of property to build a new center, it was done because it was an enormous piece of property. The tot lot only affected portions of it, and when we discussed it in meetings, we said we could move the tot lot behind the Hispanic Resource Center, and we would still have a large piece of ground on the side of that, which, in talking to the soccer club, they could use that piece of ground. We would still have a tot lot. That tot lot could be used by the Hispanic Resource Center for the programs that they have in after-school enrichment, so the kids weren't in class all the time after they get out of regular school and go into these enrichment classes. They would have a place to be able to play, okay? And all of this is available on a piece of property that the city currently owns. We don't have to buy anything. In the past 14 years, over $640,000 have been transferred to accounts earmarked for a new permanent home for the Hispanic Resource Center. In 2015, the city hired an architectural firm to design
Councilman
plans.
Reno, could you wrap?
I'm almost done. To design plans, prepare estimates, facilitate bidding process, and supervise construction of the new center on the property that was identified. This at a cost of $91,000 of our taxpayer dollars, and it is now ready to go out to the bidding process. But despite all these things in place, this project to serve our significant growing Hispanic population appears to be stuck. And worse, inexplicably, this project appears to be on the eve of going backwards while the Hispanic population numbers are growing upwards. It's time for the city of Kenner to complete its long-time plans to build a Hispanic Resource Center for its critical mass of Hispanic citizens to meet their growing needs for such a permanent facility. The time is now to take the logical first step of an ongoing process to capitalize on the land and the funding acquired to achieve this purpose. And it's time for the city to keep its longstanding promise to our Hispanic citizens and their community leaders to build a permanent facility evidencing the importance of the Hispanic demographic to the growth and prosperity of our great city. Let this mayor and this council be the ones to complete that vision, finish the plans, and fulfill the political promises to our Hispanic citizens to provide the permanent public amenity that they have great need for and that they richly deserve. A facility that will not only serve our growing Hispanic community, but will continue to serve all the citizens of our great city. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mayor Zahn, you have the floor.
Thank you, Council Chairman. Before I call Ryan Bergeron up, do you mind if I correct some of the?
Listen, this is an opportunity. I think it's important. A lot of this information for our sake of Councilwoman Hand, Councilmember Klein, who was not here when myself. So a lot of this may seem long, but I think it's important for us to have it, and on your part too, and for the audience. So by all means, let's be able to get the information out.
I'm not going to go into, we're on the Hispanic Resource, and I'm not going to continue to go into the lawsuits, but sometimes when you're an author of a lawsuit, that generates a lawsuit against the city. That's what I meant about that, Councilman Reno. You were the face of the charter amendment that went out before the people, which was misrepresented when you were warned by the attorney at the time that it's unconstitutional. Here we are in federal court now, and it is unconstitutional. But let's get on the Hispanic Resource Center. Let's get on the legislation of tonight. It is capital, not operating. The comment was made that it was going to go into operating of the police department and fire department when he kind of like described selling property in business goes back into reinvestment of property. Correct. I'm in business too. I get it. But this is going into capital, not operating. However, this council maybe not you, Tom, and you, Kelly, but this council, along with me as a council member, did at times have to change operating to capital and capital to operating. So historically, that is done, but that's not what was being done in this legislation. When I signed the document, when I came in the very first day of this administration, I signed to pay what you all wanted done. There was a change order of, and what proves my point is you proved it for me, and I appreciate you pointing it out for me. It went from $79,000 to $91,100, which is $11,366. I didn't one day when I didn't, on the first day of my administration, I didn't walk in and say, hey, can I do something for $11,366? Unless it was presented to me that it already paid for and I had to authorize it. As the CEO of the city of Kenner, I had an obligation to pay the bill that was already done. So I think the proof is I had to pay what was already done, and that the amount is $11,366 because it was there. Let's pay the Billy Seisler Architects, and get it done. The general fund was never listed on anything that you all saw. If you have something with that, it is a typo. I have not seen that. A general fund is not a loss fund. A loss fund is going to be explained by our legal department in just 1 minute. It is all capital money except for the loss fund, which keeps us whole. And what we need is the loss fund to pay these lawsuits and continue to build a loss fund to pay these lawsuits. So there's just a few misinterpretations or, I'll be nice, instead of saying misleading the public again, of what is being done here tonight. We are doing something for police, fire, and a loss fund. With that, if you don't mind, if I call up the fire chief, but also you, I know we have people lining up behind us, and I appreciate that, but also Lee Roussel after the fire chief. That's part of my presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Chief Bergeron, if you don't, it's part of
Yeah,
mine.
Chief. Name and address, Chief.
Chief Bergeron, 3912 Barreau. First, I wanted to start off by saying everything I'm going to bring up is capital. Everything I'm going to say is regarding public safety and firefighter safety.
Thank you.
That's my stance on this amendment and everything that's going on and being said. Councilman Segura said it perfect at the very beginning, is that regarding my capital budget. I have zero. I have zero capital funds. I have zero dedicated to the fire department and the firefighters regarding capital projects. I can't budget for trucks. I can't budget for stations. Obviously, I can't budget for bunker gear, which most of you've seen. So when I go through some of these topics, I want to go back about a month when I brought bunker gear here, and I brought an old coat and I brought a new coat. And I know most of y'all saw it, and a lot of people had comments on it. So when I talk about my infrastructure, I want to paint a picture of that bunker coat, because that depicts our fire stations along with our fire trucks. Right after I got in, took this position, or I accepted this position, I reached out to the administration to see if they were interested in coming out to see a tour of the fire stations, because they needed to see. I can say it all day long. Our stations are deplorable, our trucks are old, but they needed to see it firsthand. And within hours, they accepted my invitation. Deborah and I, along with the mayor, we took 2 days of tours so she can meet the men and women of my department, also to see the fire stations and the fire trucks, because I can only say so much. My infrastructure speaks for itself. It's old, it's bad, and it needs to be updated. I can't do it because I don't have a capital budget. There's no money allocated for the fire department and capital projects. That's just the facts. This is something that's been going on for a long time. It's not something that happened overnight, but I think 12B is the right direction. It's not going to fix everything regarding my department, but it's a step in the right direction to where it's a start, to where I shouldn't have to come to this council for bunker gear to ask for $7,600. That's embarrassing to me, it's embarrassing to my department, and it's embarrassing to the men and women who go into burning buildings that I have to come here and say, hey, can I borrow $7,600 from this council to pay for these people to go into burning buildings, to protect them? Just to get on some of the fire trucks. A fire truck schedule, we're supposed to be on a truck schedule. A pumper lifespan is around 12 years, and a ladder truck is right around 15 years. Our average age of our fleet is 17 years old. We have trucks, we have inline pumpers in Councilman Carroll's district that are 21 years old. We have trucks in District 5 that are from 1990. The 1990 truck doesn't even have seat belts. It has lap belts. So this is what I have to put my men and women in, a lap belt. How sad is that I can't increase or buy or schedule trucks that we're putting lap belts on our people in 2017? Our trucks are breaking down more regularly. Maintenance costs have gone up every single year. That's in budget. Within the last 2 weeks or so, we had every inline truck go down, meaning that we had a reserve at every single station. To where if I had one more truck break, this was 2 weeks ago, and this is happening more and more and more, that we didn't have any more trucks to put in stations. We were gonna be without a truck. Now, how I was gonna handle that, I was gonna handle it if I handle it, but it didn't come to that. That's becoming more normal than it should be. Our reserve trucks, our newest reserve truck is 20 years old, at the newest. So when our old trucks, our inline trucks are going down, we're replacing them with older trucks. Moving on to stations. All of our stations need insulation, every single one of them. We've had mold issues, we have roof issues, we have condensation issues, we have window issues. We have issues, we can keep going on and on and on. Without a capital project budget, I can't put in for anything. I don't have the funds. I don't have any money dedicated to me to fix these things. Every station needs a new roof. Most stations need a new roof along with headquarters. We have stations that we've sent out AC companies for repair multiple times. We have a drip pan at the Rivertown station, and the resolution to that, or the solution to that, was we have a pump, a portable pump that pumps the water out of this thing because we can't fix it. The AC company can't fix it, and I really don't have any more funds to put into it. It's pretty much destroyed the sheetrock in the second floor. That's what we're dealing with pretty much day to day. And then I'll close with, these problems didn't happen overnight. These problems have been going on for a long time. But I'll say again that this resolution will start the process in fixing some of our problems, because if it doesn't, we're going to be in the same boat as we currently are. And it's not fair to my department, it's not fair to our firefighters to have old trucks, have old stations. They deserve better, and then the citizens deserve better, because the better equipment that we have, we can serve the citizens better. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. I don't see any lights, but Mayor Zahn.
Part of my presentation is still the legal
Okay.
department.
Attorney,
Yes, sir.
yes.
I'm going to explain a little bit about the Lost Fund. The City of Kenner, as most of you all know, has a self-insured retention program. And what that means is that we're actually required by our insurance policies to maintain adequate reserves to cover expected losses. In fact, maintaining these reserves is a contractual obligation in accordance with our insurance policies. Failure to maintain it puts our insurance program, our self-insured program, at risk. A loss fund would basically make insurance premiums more affordable because we're self-insured. We're self-insured up to $500,000. But our risk management consultant has actually recommended that we maintain a loss fund, and this is going to sound very high, but at about $4.5 million. We've talked about this. When I came in as city attorney in January 2016, we had $0 in the loss fund. Under Acting Mayor Segura, we actually were able to find money and move money around, which is exactly what this legislation would do tonight, to cover the Dunn litigation. It's basically in excess of $600,000. But a loss fund would pay for things like insurance premiums, attorney's fees, expected losses. What this administration has done since they came in January is they've begun the process to actually allocate losses to departments. So the 2 lawsuits that Mayor Zahn had mentioned, those would be allocated to the council's department. Other departments have losses, the police department, the fire department, I just mentioned. Since the insurance risk management consultant has recommended that we maintain that sum of money, it's actually not, it's not operating expenses, it's like a deposit. Another issue is that if we don't have the money available, we're not able to settle lawsuits, which could subject the city to more risks, such as, getting cast in exorbitant judgments, also being subjected to judicial interest and possibly attorney's fees. These are risks that the city cannot afford to take. And it's important that we maintain a loss fund. It's important that we start somewhere. This legislation would basically provide the vehicle and the mechanism to do that. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Attorney.
Can I ask a question to City Attorney?
Sure.
Let Chief Glazer has the floor now, and then.
Okay. So in the past, we've had money in a loss retention fund. You've been with the city for about 10 years?
Almost 12.
Okay, so in the 12 years you've been here, have we ever had any money in a loss retention fund?
Yes, we have. Yes.
And can you recall when we started where we didn't have money in the loss retention fund?
I think it's been a long time, Councilman Reno. I want to say it was the 90s? Well, yeah, so I mean, basically, what happens is you're supposed to maintain this money, okay? It's required, but I don't think my microphone's on. 2003 is what I'm hearing, but basically, we've been settling lawsuits. We've found the money because we're required to. We have to settle lawsuits so we don't get subjected to exorbitant judgments. But maintaining the money in the loss fund is actually a contractual requirement under our excess policies. We're insured up to $5 million. So maintaining this fund is, we could be in breach of our contracts with our insurance policies. It's serious business. But I don't know exactly when's the last time we had some sum of money in a loss fund, but I can say that when I came in as city attorney in January of 2016, we had $0 in a loss fund. I don't know when the last time was that we had a loss fund, but it was $0 at that time, and we had to find the money to set aside to settle this Dunn litigation, which we've had an executive session on at least 3 times since I've been city attorney.
And we have a fund balance, correct?
Well, I'm going to defer to the administration on answering that.
You made a comment that the insurance company requires us to have this fund, and we don't have the fund, and you said that we haven't had the fund in quite some time. So evidently, we must be telling the insurance company, and I don't know, this is a hypothetical, you must be saying, well, we have a fund balance of how much, Ms. Foshi? About?
Am I on? Okay. So no, the fund balance and the loss fund are not the same. I wish you and I had a chance to have this conversation before we got here, but I don't know that it's the best thing to, I guess our best argument is, we got here in January, so all we know is what was here in January. I've looked back to see, there is a fund called the lost fund, which has no money in it. So to suggest there was never a lost fund is not correct. There's been a lost fund the whole time. But that money appears to have been taken in small pieces over time to put here and there and the other place. So there was a time, I think, where the city was fairly disciplined about this. It's one of those things like when I went from being an employee to being self-employed and having my own business, it sure was hard to put that money away for the taxes because I could see it sitting there and I could use it for things. It's the same kind of thing. Here we're sitting, we have the responsibility. If we don't put the money there and then we get hit with that lawsuit and we don't have it, there's nothing. There's no option. So I think what we're talking about here is trying to do what's prudent business. The recommendation is, yes, $4.5 million. I think the first time we talked about that before, I said it's going to take us 8 years to get there. We're not going to get there today. We're not going to get there in 1 year. The deposit concept is like you rent a house, you give them a deposit, and you pay your rent. Your rent's your operating expense. You hope you never touch the deposit. It's a one-time expense. That's the concept behind the lost fund. So while we're talking about, yes, we should have 4.5, I think tonight we're just asking for what, 200? Can we have 200 in the lost fund? So you're right. We've been doing it wrong this far. Why are we trying to do it right now? Is kind of the argument that I hope that we're not going to. Please give us a chance to do it the right way. I think that's what we're asking for. Is like help us at least start down the road of doing it right.
But so the public knows we do have a fund balance. And in that fund balance, we have approximately how much money?
You have a fund balance of $6 million, and the minute you spend into that, you're going to trigger your bond covenants, and we cannot spend a dime of that.
Okay.
That cannot, it would have to be a Katrina situation before we could touch that. That cannot be used for your lost fund.
Okay, and this is what this administration is saying, that this is the only money that's available to use. So the $1.5 million that was part of the BP settlement, that was to build a new building to store surplus phones, computers, whatever, equipment, which was next to the Public Works building. I mean, I was on the council. Of course, I didn't vote for it, but that was part of the BP settlement, that $1.5 million was put aside to build this building that's currently there but kind of falling apart. And it was about 30-something hundred square feet. It was under 4,000 square feet. And it was one of the reasons that I didn't agree to go along with the BP settlement money, was to put it to build a $1.5 million building reusing a slab, and it was only less than 4,000 square foot building. And I was going, that doesn't make dollars and cents wise to me. That's a $500-600 a square foot, and you're reusing the land and the foundation. All you're doing is building a building. So is that money still available?
I agree with you. I'm not quite, nobody elected me, so my opinion doesn't matter. But what I'm telling you is when we first saw that was one of the items. It's like, what are we spending this money on? This is kind of crazy. As you know, with the new airport and the flyover is going to take up Loyola, and they're going to take our firehouse. So the 1.5, in addition to the new funds that we can get from DOTD, and we're praying we get some money from FAA, the cost of replacing that in a location that doesn't affect our PIAL rating is going to be, the construction is going to be between 4.2 and 4.5, and the lot that we found is 985. So I haven't had this conversation with any of you yet, but I was going to come and beg, please, can we transfer that so that can be our match for the firehouse? So I understand what you're saying. Yes, if there's any money out there. Frankly, if we got a $1.5 million lawsuit judgment this second, that's probably where we'd have to go. The lost fund is planning for the future to try to keep us out of trouble. So if you're asking, can we use that money, I hope we can use that money to help replace the firehouse, because we're going to be out of a firehouse very shortly.
I was told in the airport meetings that the airport is building us a new fire station because they're taking ours.
Did they tell you how much money they're going to give us for that? I'm sorry.
I think we're going off in too many directions here. Let's stick to the legislation.
Okay.
This other stuff we can talk in the future about, but we're going all over the place here, and everybody's talking about different things we should not be talking about now. Let's just stick to the legislation.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Right, but that's,
Chief, Ms. Fauché, if you just wanted to wrap up one statement.
No, I was just answering his question, so.
Thank you. Chief Glazer, you have the floor.
Well, I'll be brief, as always. But no, just to give y'all a heads up with the expenses of the police department. As is stated tonight, the fire department has no capital budget. Police department does not. We found, I think not the last budget, the one previous year where we had a couple of $100,000 left over at the end of the year. We put it into a police department line item in the city budget that can roll over. So that's the only capital money I even have year to year. But anticipated cost coming up is Motorola's told us in the next couple of years, I think it was either 19 or 20, the radio system that we use now is going to be phased out and non-supported. At about $12,000 a radio, that puts us over about $1.4 million to buy radio system for the police department. So hopefully they last a long time. We won't have to buy stuff. The legislature meets again. I know there's going to be a body camera bill, whether it passed or not, where we're mandated to wear body cameras. That's going to be a hefty expense, and I'm in a position that to eliminate police department administrative jobs that computers are kind of taking over, so reducing the actual number of employees. If we get a body camera program, we're going to increase, because it's going to take 2 or 3 dedicated people just to fool with that daily, as many policemen we will have wearing body cameras. We have an estimate of our roof on a police complex. I understand it's had a leak. It's been leaking, anywhere up from $150,000 to $300,000. So I'm hoping it's more like $50,000, but we'll get that done. Chillers, automobiles are always a problem, just to give you an idea of what we have coming up. So any little bit, I mean, this legislation, I believe here, is only a little under $50,000 for the police department, but that's half of it, an air-conditioned chiller that we can buy, you know, that we can put towards. That's the immediate needs that we have. So that's all. If y'all have any questions for me.
Thank you, Chief. And I think we had some of the audience that wanted to speak. Apologize for the duration, but if you would please come up, please let's stick to the legislation. And I'm going to turn the clock on if it seems to be going on, but let's stick to the legislation. Name and address.
Thank you, Mr. President. Richard Brown, Sessions Lane, Kenner. And by the way, Stacy Alessandro had to leave. This is her son's birthday. She had some prepared comments that she really wanted to make tonight. This is confusing. I've got mixed emotions about it. I have not studied it as much as I wanted to, nor have had a chance to talk to many of you about it, a couple of you. But I have 2 main concerns, and I don't know how popular or unpopular this is. But I have concerns about the city of Kenner using a large chunk of public money to build or to fund a resource center for a particular ethnic group, part of our population, whether it's a Hispanic resource center, Vietnamese resource center, or Asian resource center. I have a problem with that. I think what Kenner needs is a community resource center, a citizens resource center that serves all citizens and where all citizens feel welcome. I am told, I don't know this for a fact, but I am told that a lot of citizens, if they're not Hispanic, feel very uncomfortable going to the Hispanic Resource Center. Now, on the flip side, if the city has made commitments to build it, I can understand the desire to honor those commitments. And I have to leave it to you on the council to figure out what we should do. But I'm telling you, the way I feel and what I hear from a lot of friends is that they don't want a Hispanic or any other ethnic resource center. They want a Kenner Citizens Community Resource Center. As far as this particular ordinance moving this money, I have it's certainly within the council's discretion now whether and how to move capital money around. If you in your judgment think some of it should go to the police department or the fire department, I don't have a problem with that. I think the fire department sorely needs it. They need new fire trucks. The fire department, I think, has kind of been the redheaded stepchild of the city. I realize we probably need a loss fund, but I have a problem with using one-time capital money to fund what is actually a recurring expense that should be should be a budgeted expense. It should be budgeted through the regular budgetary process. How we've gotten along for all these years without it, I don't know. Maybe if some money is needed, and I think this was a comment that Ms. Alessandro was going to make, if it's necessary to kickstart it, I can understand that. But I want, and she wants everybody on this council and the mayor to know that we look at this as a one-time kickstart, not recurrent funding.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Is my time up?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Name and address, please.
Conchita Sully, Kane's Place. Today, Hispanics make up 24% of Kenner's population. When the Hispanic Resource Center came into being, that was at a 12%, 2003. The growth spurt was impressive, but something more impressive is the fact that it makes up 15% of the voting population. That should make you all take up and take note. We finally have sufficient funds to put out for bid our construction for the Hispanic Resource Building, and a good chance of getting it because we have $641,826 and a promise of another $100,000. We have plans that cost $91,000 that were increased because we went from steel construction to stick construction, which was a lot more practical. It made more sense and were approved. It has finally come to the point where we think we can achieve this very worthwhile project. Tonight, it came to my attention that we might have the funds to build the building, but we don't have the funds to maintain the building. But it occurred to me that if we sell the land that it's sitting on, we would have the money to maintain the building, at least initially, okay? And Ben, I don't think you hate Hispanics. I never have, okay? I never have felt that way. And I don't know who put that idea in your head. Okay, it's ridiculous. You wouldn't survive in this city if you felt that way. They'd hang you by your toes, okay? So no, don't feel that I would even imagine that. I'm not that foolish, and I don't think you are either, okay? The sale of the current slot would help with the maintenance. As far as the Hispanic Resource Center, they take care of Asians, whites, black, Hispanics, you name it. Any ethnicity walks in there every day of the week. It's only limited by the size, and first come, first serve. They wait to get into that center, and they wait outside and beg to get in. They have children that are treated there that'll tell you what Miss Rebecca has done for them and how well she has taken care of them. They love that center. Unfortunately, it's fallen apart around their ears, okay? And it can't be expanded. And they need space. And this is what we're asking for, space. I don't think they needed 4,000 feet, but they needed space. And guys, this is an opportunity. And I'm not asking you to choose between the fire people and the police people and us. I'm asking you to take advantage of an opportunity that is facing us now. And I think the police and the fire people need to be in our budget, and a recurring budget. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Name and address, doctor.
I am honored to know most of you personally. My name is Benicio Madrigal. Most of you call me Vince. Ms. Kelly, I have never met you before, but it is an honor to be able to speak to you and to this very honorable body. I did not plan to say what I'm about to say because I had another idea, but you guys in your discussion today have very much covered the history behind the creation and existence of the Hispanic Resource Center. I was running around with Mayor Louis Congemi and with Ms. Conchita Zuli and Gary Espiazu, who some of you know, who are the true initiators of all this. La Escuelita was a garage in the Redwood Apartments, which is where all of this started out. And out of Mayor Congemi's intentions, well-intentioned, the temporary buildings that we are now housed in were put there. I want to say one more thing, Ben, and you are my friend. I am telling this in front of everybody here. You are my friend. That said, I did not agree with anything that you said yesterday. No, I did not. I said, you did not say it. Okay, I misunderstood. I really thought he said that I had agreed with something that he had said. Oh, by the way, I don't always look this way. I had surgery this morning, but I did not want to miss this meeting. That's why I came looking this way. I'm going to close. I probably have a few minutes. Please look at the audience. However, when have you seen this many Hispanics together, unless there was a party? But this is why they're here, because this is terribly important for the community in general. There is not much a firefighter or a first responder can do as a single improvement in education can do for the life of these children. We already have a Jefferson Parish school system that leaves a lot to be desired. And I don't have to tell you why, because most of you know the situation of our school system. In fact, I'm part of the Canada Discovery School, and I'm honored and proud to tell you here today that while we have 1,200 students on the rolls, we've got 1,000 students waiting to come in. This is kind of what the Hispanic Center is achieving, or hoping to achieve. Look at their achievements. Look at what has been accomplished through the years. I just heard the fire department and the police department say that they're dilapidated. Quite honestly, that did not happen overnight. And I don't want to blame anybody, with all due respect. Some of you have been here in council before, some of you may have not. I am here as myself, the doctor and the community activist that I really am. Sometimes I am a doctor, more often than not, I am a community activist. As I say that, I want to tell you that I'm also the president of HISPAC.
Doctor, I'm going to give you 20 more seconds. Your 3 minutes is.
I'm also the president of HISPAC. We have helped many of you get elected. And I please ask you to bear in mind that I'm going to have to go back and face this community if this is a negative vote, and try to convince them that they still need to vote for people who voted against them. Thank you. Have a great day. God bless America.
Thank you, Doctor. Name and address, please.
Donna Reno, 42 Emil. I'm just coming to say that I talked to Mr. Martinez with the Blue Eagle Soccer Association the other day, and he said that it was all worked out, that the community center and the soccer field were all going to be fine right where they are. I find it strange that all of a sudden the police and the fire department have to come into this particular situation because they want it to look like certain people are against the fire and the police, and that's not true. And the Blue Eagle Soccer Association said they asked for the lot behind All Saints Pharmacy, but that lot was filled in with big piles of dirt to stop the Mexicans from playing soccer there when I was on the Driftwood Park Civic Association by the then councilman of District 3, Ben Zahn. So all they had to do was be moved to that soccer field. If it included the councilman for that area, then it all would have been taken care of much quicker.
Thank you.
That is not a lie.
Name and address, Mr. Morella.
Al Morella, 4260 East Loyola Drive, 5th District, 45 years. First of all, I've always believed that the sale of any movable or immovable property in any district in this city, the proceeds should go to where the greatest needs are of this city. You 7 council members and this administration was elected, and we pay your salary to represent the best interests of all of the people in this city. If you keep the money in the district where the property was sold time and time again, this is a divisive issue. I do not want to see our city divided like some municipalities are in this area. And that's a divisive issue. Now, I think what the problem is, what some of the motivation is behind a lot of these things, talking about divisive issues, I think what we need to do is concern ourselves with in the best interest of all of the people in this city instead of trying to get votes from certain groups of people in this city. I think that politics plays a big role in this. Now, you want to talk about population in this city? Who speaks for our seniors? The senior citizens are the biggest portion of the population in this city, and they pay all of the bills here. Now, you want to talk about a building that needs some work? Go take a ride on 6th and Compromise and take a look at our Community Development Center. Community Development Center and the Senior Center down there, and tell me what you see. When's the last time one of y'all took a ride down there and took a look at that? This is one city. We're not a divided city. We are all in this thing together. Whatever happens in any part of the city of Kenner affects every taxpaying citizen who lives here. We are one city, folks. You all were hired and you're paid to represent all of us' best interests. Let's start doing it. Forget about vote getting. That'll take care of itself when the election process rolls around. Anybody got any comments, any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Morello.
Thank you.
Name and address, sir.
My name is George Martinez. I'm with Blue Eagle Soccer Association. I come before y'all with a lot of gratitude because in all these years, I've been living in Kenner for the past 35 plus years, and this is the only cabinet that has opened arms to us to help us with our children. There may have you might have a Hispanic Chamber of Commerce that is for the commerce, but what about the common people, the ones who buy from the commerce? We are an association, we're with the Louisiana Soccer Association, and we're an outreach program. We're one of the 3 only programs in the whole nation. The other ones are in South Los Angeles, the other one is San Antonio, and we are the 3rd one. We picked Kenner because of the immense soccer kids, kids that want to participate that really don't know where to go because they don't have the funds to go anywhere else. We cater to single parents. We cater to both parents that both work. Because if you know, the price to play organized soccer right here in this state is astronomical. And us, along with other entities that come to mind, the Kenner Association, the Kenner Soccer Association, we're the only ones that really look out for the youth of Kenner, really. Because in all these years that have passed by, we have screamed, we have gotten people to come talk to the members of the city, never had an answer. Mr. Zahn was grateful enough with his cabinet to grant us the pocket park. Mr. Keith Reynolds came on board and gave us an extra space, which we are grateful. But, we do the work because of our community. We do not charge. Other people have hidden agendas where they're making money out of this. We're probably the only ones that can say that we don't charge to be part of this youth movement. So in all these years, now that we're granted something, turmoil comes about, you know, it's kind of far-reaching, you know, that now that we're getting help, they want to take it away from us or...
30 seconds, sir.
So with that being said, BSA, Blue Eagle Soccer Association wants to express our gratitude to the whole city as a whole for looking out for our children. There's probably 120 families that we cater to, that we have asked.
Thank you, sir.
To join the other ones to, you know, nothing but deaf ears.
Thank you. Name and address, please.
Lillian Gross, 22 Trail Minor Drive. I am the Vice President of Blue Eagle Soccer Association. If it wasn't for Blue Eagle, my own children would not be able to partake in competitive soccer because of the fees. We are not just a soccer program. I am actually a special ed paraeducator at Kenner Discovery, and we tutor our children. We have interpreters that help me understand our families. My 5-year-old daughter knows more Spanish than I do. So we tutor our families, we help them get places that they need to go. Our U13 team just won the Alabama Challenger Cup, and the man that spoke before me, Mr. George Martinez, and I myself had 5 boys with us because their parents could not take the trip with us. There's no other soccer club that I've ever known of that does things like that. But not only does the Pocket Park help Blue Eagle, I'm also the middle school soccer coach for Kenner Discovery, and we now practice over there. So it is helping more than just Blue Eagle in our community. So we want to thank the city and the mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
My name is Carlos Bueso, and represent Kenner Soccer. That's the way I registered my organization. I've been working and helping the city with recreation for 9 years. And as the recreation be over, I seen the children's play in the street, and they don't have a place to play with it. So I put in my heart to work, because I've been living in Kenner for 27 years. This is my city. That's the way I believe, and that's the way I told my children, my kids, look, we belong to Kenner, and that's where we're gonna stay. So when I see that the children's being playing on the street, and there's a lot of kids being hit by the cars because they don't have a place to play. And the only place we've been having is like every 3 months is Highway Park, okay? So after 3 months, we go off for 3 months, and then we come back to the recreation program. So that's put in my heart. I say, well, I'm gonna help these kids. Sometimes it's hard because I'm a citizen from Kenner, and I work hard. I'm not a rich guy. I wish I'd be a rich guy. I would have given everything to the kids. So we give whatever we can. So today, I'm here to thank the mayor. I didn't even have a chance to meet anybody personal. But in the name of Kenner Soccer, no recreation, the program that I have that I've already been registered, I would attend personal because I see you're being given soccer field to the Blue Eagles. Our relationship between Blue Eagles and us is been good for a long time. I've been known Tony Martinez, the Martinez family, for 20-something years. And the reason I'm working by my on the side doesn't mean I'm not together with them. They've been helping me a lot too, because I got those kids from Kenner City play competitive now. Because thanks to them, they've been helping me a lot. So they've been even being helping and giving a lot of ideas, things that I don't know, that I'm real ignorant in that thing, because they got a lot of laws over there, a lot of rules. And being the recreation, myself with those kids, and Highway Park, and being coming to competitive, is there a lot of different rules. And I'm personal, I thank all of y'all for being helping us, because you're helping these people, and not just them, it's the children of Kenner. Because it's not just the Spanish community, Because we don't have just Spanish people in our program. We got all kind of people. And trust me, it's a blessing to keep these kids away from the street. You know why? Because later on, that's going to keep those kids away from drugs.
30 seconds, sir.
It's going to keep the kids away from drugs and help the city. These kids don't get in trouble. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Name and address, please.
Good evening. My name is Didi Cardenas. I just want to say, I want to talk about 2 points. The first point is the Hispanic Resource Center. I mean, everybody is welcome in the Hispanic Resource Center, all races. And I do agree, should be called Community Resource Center, definitely.
Yeah.
And the second point, you talk about take off the street our kids. Okay, I want to say something very important. Our kids, they are not in the street. They are every afternoon, every evening, studying and making homework in the Hispanic Resource Center. And definitely they deserve a better facility to do that. I mean, at example, I have 2 kids here. One of them is my kid, the other is a friend, and they want to say something quickly.
Well, I wanted to say that thanks to Hispanics Resource Center, I got to be on the honor roll, and I'm going to be on the honor roll still. My name is Nicholas Cardenas, and I am a student from the Hispanic Resource Center, and we aren't just kids in the row just sitting. We're kids who are studying in the Hispanic Resource Center.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ernesto Posadas, and I live on 8th 37th Street in Driftwood. Question for you. So I just want to understand the whole situation. Basically, there were property sales allotted to the Hispanic Business Resource Center, correct? And so now, all of a sudden, we want to take those monies and create an allotment fund for the fire department and the chief of police? Is that what's going on? The police department? Okay. I have another question. Why do they not previously have their own funds if Kenner is one of the best cities in the nation, safest, right? They're safest in terms of. Is it? There you go. But I have a question. That's just, as a concerned Kenner citizen, I want to know why there isn't previously a set fund for not only the fire department or the Kenner chief of police. First question. And then why would we, if this was planned years ago, it's now coming into fruition, why would we take our strongest departments, which is our Kenner Police Department and our fire department, which makes Kenner basically a city everyone wants to live in because it's safe and your house isn't going to burn down and they'll save your cat. But seriously, why would we pit kind of people against each other, first and foremost? And then secondly, I understand the need of the fire department. If you have a truck from 1990, I don't want to drive a car from, mine's a 2000, I had 2006. I just upgraded 2010. It still sucks. But like, you don't want to, you want to do your job and you want to do your job well. Chief of Police and your department, you protect us. Thank you for the job you do every day. You put you and your men on the line every day. But we also had an agreement, and you had an agreement with 24% of your citizenry, a citizenship that's growing, a citizenship that if you drive down Williams Boulevard, you see a Latino business every other week popping up, people that contribute to your businesses, your economy, your schools, your development as citizens of this great city. So I understand I just don't understand why we need to take the funds from this, or are we taking the funds from this resource center? Is that what we're doing? So how much money's in there? 395,000? And we're taking 24% of that and giving it to the police, and then
30 seconds, sir.
Well, I need somebody to clarify that.
Well, we've sat through an hour of explaining it. So if you want me to go back over it again, we just don't have that much time. So if you were here, you heard a lot of information, and some of us may discuss it more, but now is not the time to go over it all again. I hope you can appreciate that.
I understand.
Thank you.
I mean, if I didn't understand it, I think a lot of other people didn't understand it.
Well, I don't know if you said you didn't understand or you just wanted to know. So I'm saying it was explained, and all of us are going to be here a little bit longer. We can talk more about it, but we are going on the legislation, and we can answer your questions, additional questions that you may have.
I mean, so, okay.
Thank you.
So I'm done? Okay, thank you.
Rocio Tirado, 3144 Texas Avenue. I wasn't prepared to come talk, but I think it's important. And it's important because I cannot be a citizen just to sit down and watching you all. I know the Hispanic Resource Center for many years. I know many kids that they came out from that center that their parents didn't speak English to be able to do their homework. And I can name it. I mean, right now they're in Loyola, they're in LSU, in Lafayette. It is very important. I don't know how you guys do the budget in your houses, but how in the world you can do dog parks and put Christmas lights when you don't have money for the police and the fire department? That's wrong. You don't take the money from one place to another just to pay. So you guys use your money that you have assigned to the rent to go and spend it on trips. You don't do that. You have a budget and you have to work out of that. Now, I'm very disappointed to you because we have been working with the city of Kenner for years with a soccer organization. We started with Ms. Fortunato not too long ago. We had more than 5 meetings with Mr. Moracoli asking for a park. We have never got one. But Blue Eagles, today is Blue Eagles, can't have another name. It just got a park. It's not about them. We have played, and we're very happy that they have a place where to play. There's a lot of kids that they need to do sports. My son traveled to Barcelona 3 months ago because he was enrolled in Jambalaya Soccer Academy since he was a kid. So he had this opportunity. You know, you never know. In 5, 6 years, you will see another Messi, and he came out from Kenner, Louisiana. So I know you don't hate Hispanics because you place ads in the Latinos media, so that's not the point. I think here is more political, that what's good for our city and what's not good for our city. And I think you should see that there is a problem with the police and with the fire department, that you have to pay attention. Christmas lights doesn't do better. Get some fire trucks for them, but don't be getting the money that it's allocated in one account to pay something else. Thank you.
Thank you. And this will be the last person to speak. Name and address, sir.
Hello, my name is Ernesto Schweikert. I own a building here in Kenner, 3244 Georgia Avenue, where the El Patio restaurant used to be there for a long, long time.
Excuse me, sir. Sir, this is the last person to speak on this subject. You can come at the end of the meeting, and you can address it then. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm a native of Guatemala, but I've been here for 40 years, and Kenner is also, I call it like my city, because most of our community, especially when they immigrated from Latin America, Central America to New Orleans, Kenner, like another person said here, opened the arms, and they start selling houses here in Kenner for very little money, and this is why a lot of the Spanish community moved into Kenner. I think the Hispanic Center has helped the community in a long, long time, and one of the things that I want to tell everybody here is that the Hispanic community is not an exclusive thing. We want to be inclusive. We want to be part of the city. If we live in Kenner, we are part of Kenner. So maybe we can compromise. Maybe, you know, I also run KGLA Telemundo TV station. I also run the KGLA Spanish radio station, which has been broadcasting for 45 years. I think will be a great opportunity to get the community together and find a great solution. But we don't want the Hispanic Cultural Center to disappear. We just want to negotiate and see if there is a big solution, and we can even call it community center. Call it community center because it helps everybody. It helps the Asians, it helps the African Americans. I've been in that center for many, many years. I know Ms. Rebecca Hasbun has done a great job helping the community. So it will be a step backwards for Kenner to do this kind of thing when it's been an example for the state. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman DeFrances, you have the floor.
Thank you, Council President. I purposely waited because I wanted to hear what everybody else had to say. And I didn't think it was fair for the public to wait until all the council people spoke. So I asked our Council President to let me go last after they had a chance to speak. So there are some issues, and I'm so glad I waited, because there were some issues that were raised that I feel I need to address, and it does deal with 12B. First of all, whether it was intentional or unintentional, and I'm going to assume it was unintentional because I want to give everybody the benefit of the doubt, it was portrayed that anyone that was against 12B was either anti-police or anti-fire department or any of a number of things. And that could not be further from the truth. And I'm going to point out to you why that's such a false inference. But before I do that, I want to address Mr. Morello's comment about our senior citizens. No one has looked out more than I have. Let me tell you about our Senior Citizen Center. It was infested with mold, and I did call Mr. Maricoli, and I called the administration. I thanked the administration because you know what they did? When I called it in after seeing it myself, the administration addressed the problem. So I think you have to give credit where credit is due. Sometimes people overlook problems, Mr. Morello, but the administration did address it. The mold is gone. The senior citizen is a safe center for our seniors. So you have to also look at both sides, and you have to be fair to the administration as well as to the other side. Sometimes things do fall through the crack. So I wanted to get that out of the way first, sir. And as far as the Hispanic Resource Center, I have been there probably more than anyone. I've been on the council longer than anyone. I have been there for almost every single function, and it is not just a Hispanic function. Let me tell you, when you go there, there's a large percentage of African Americans. There are a large percentage of Caucasians. There's a large percentage, obviously, of Hispanics, and many others. You know, not even just those ethnic groups I mentioned, but I'm not going to go through a litany this long of all the ethnic groups. And I have never seen anyone there, Mr. Richard, that felt uncomfortable, I'll be honest with you. And in fact, Susan Rogen, you perhaps know who she is, the News with a Twist, actually does some teaching at that center as well. So if that doesn't tell you, even one of the television personalities feels comfortable in going there to teach. So those are out of the way. So we've talked about the Community Development Center, we've talked about the elderly, we've talked about feeling comfortable with the center. I want to talk about, first of all, the fire department. After Katrina, I was elected. During that administration, there was some money, and our mayor was there too, and he knows about this, that was going to be spent to build something that I thought, at first I thought it was a great idea. When I heard Mickey Geruso at the end of the meeting give some additional information, I went, wait a minute, had I known those facts, I wouldn't have voted for it. So I made a statement to then Mike Genney, who was the CEO, and said, I'm going to check out what Mickey said. I'm going to go to every single fire station and check out whether or not they really are living in conditions that are not acceptable. I don't know of anyone other than myself, and maybe Mayor Zahn, if he has done it since someone mentioned it to him, who has visited every single fire station. I climbed into the attic of some of them to look at the mold, and when I came back and brought it up for reconsideration at the next meeting, I worked with the mayor that we then had in office and made such a point of what I had found and how dangerous it was for our firemen to live under those conditions where water was coming in when it rained. They had to pick up their gear off the floor and put it on their bunk with them, which was totally unacceptable. And I'm not going to go through the myriad of other problems that I discovered. The Myers Engineering, and I think some of you were here then, know that Myers Engineering was hired to address those problems, to do their own investigation, come back to the administration and address those problems, and they were were addressed at that point. And again, if I didn't care about the fire department, I certainly would not have done that or climbed into an attic where even the firemen were afraid I'd kill myself. So I am telling you, I've been extremely supportive of the fire department. In fact, at that time, when we voted against constructing a building that was unnecessary for, that our firemen even said they didn't want, I offered the then fire chief to use that, to support using that money for a new fire truck. Not the current fire chief that was fired, by the way, out of fairness, but a different fire chief, and he said he didn't need it. He actually came up here and talked to me and said he really didn't need it. So we have made efforts over the years to even buy fire trucks. I can tell you I was one of them. We did buy a new fire truck for $750,000 with the BP money, but there's a lot more that needs to be done, and I agree with you. And we need to fight to get those issues addressed. But that doesn't mean you're against the fire department because you don't agree with a certain ordinance or a certain, a certain point of view. I've been there for you all along and will continue to be there. And as for the police department, when I got into office, I sat down with Duke McConnell because unfairly, for our police department, their funding formula was changed. And the funding formula they had in place could not possibly meet the needs of their budget. And I talked to Duke about what could we do to try to change the funding formula. And I have said publicly before, we should look at that and make sure we have a funding formula that addresses the needs of our police department. It doesn't mean we always have to put $1 million every year, which we've done, to just keep them at a standstill budget. That's not enough. We have a fabulous police department that keeps us safe. We should have a funding formula that meets the needs of that department. It should be looked at again. It should be addressed. Instead of always, and in fact, I know that when Chief Carraway was here and Chief Glazer, they've always said it's so hard for them to budget. Why? Because they never know how much money they're really going to get. How do you do a budget when you don't know how much money you're going to have? It's an awfully hard task. And I think even the police chief agrees with that and would rather have a funding formula that he knows is going to be in place and substantial enough to address the needs that he has. And again, they should be allowed to have a capital budget, both the fire department, police department, to buy the needs that they have, whether it's gear or whether it's cars, et cetera. And we need to look at that. We need to address that. But that's not the problem here. The problem here is whether or not we should take this money and divide it up in the way that was mentioned. I'm not in favor of that. First of all, we have the land. I did tell the mayor that I don't think we need to build a building as big, and I think he'll agree with me, shaking his head. The building could be smaller. We need to talk. We need to see what size will meet the needs of the community. It doesn't have to be 4,300 feet. It doesn't even have to be 3,000 square feet. Let's find out what size will meet the needs. It's certainly not having a trailer that's coming off its base where the foundation is cracked, but at the same time, I don't think we need to spend $147,000 to buy a new piece of property when we have a property. And from what I understand, talking to some of you, there is enough room on that property for the tot lot to remain. There's room enough for Blue Eagle, and if not, we'll work with you, whether it's the John Bulls Pharmacy or having a portion of that property still available to you, and still have the Hispanic Resource Center. And by the way, most of you know Shakespeare Rose by any other name. The name is not what's important. What's important is what it does. I don't care what you call it if it makes everybody happy, including the Hispanic community. Let's work to find a name that says it all. But let's talk to each other and let's try to find a solution that works for everybody. There are too many good things that happen. Number one, we have tutoring that goes on there. I've been there with the kids when they get tutored. I've been asked to speak to them and encourage them to do well in school. I've been there for the health fairs. I've been there for the elderly health fairs, the children's health fairs. Immunization took place there. They had dentists look at their teeth. They had their eyes checked, things they couldn't afford on their own. And it wasn't just the Hispanic children. It didn't matter what their ethnicity was. They were all welcome. We need to work together. I don't think this is the solution. Therefore, I couldn't vote for it. I made a commitment that a temporary trailer is not the answer. I'm sorry, it's just not, especially when it's off its foundation. It doesn't have insulation. It can't be expanded even to increase the amount of space for our children to go there for additional tutoring. And it certainly doesn't make sense to throw good money after bad. that facility just is not adequate, nor can it be expanded. We need to have a facility that works for everyone. I've been to the Martin Luther King Center. I've been the only one there sometimes. But it doesn't matter. If they call me, I go because I believe in our city. I believe in every part of our city. I believe District 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, we're one city. Absolutely right, the person that said that. And we all need to work together because it's not about division, it's about unity. When we work together, everyone moves forward, everyone succeeds. When we try to pit one group against the other, and I'm not just talking about the Hispanics, I'm talking about pitting the police and the fire department against each other, and the Hispanics and the African-American community. Let's stop doing that. Let's work together for the good of this city. Make one city and let's move forward. Our mayor has made tremendous strides in so many areas. I give credit where credit is due. I will continue to work with him. I am delighted to work with him, and I offer you any little bit of help I can to move this city forward. I'm there. But at the same time, I cannot vote for 12D. I'm sorry, 12B. My mouth is starting to stick. I've spoken too long. So again, it's not about any one group. It's not against anyone. It's for everyone. I'm with you, Mayor. I'm willing to work with you. I'm willing to look at a smaller facility if that's what it takes. Maybe we can make everything fit there. It seems to be some people are telling us that's possible. We can look at John Bull's pharmacy area. We can work together and make this a win-win for everybody, and that's what I'm here to do. And we'll work on that loss fund too. Thank you. Thank you for the time. And Councilman Carroll, thank you so much for running this meeting so efficiently and effectively.
Well,
no, I give you credit. It was a tough job tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I really appreciate that. Now, I don't see any more. Councilman Segura, you have the floor. Okay. You can go ahead. Well, I want you to get your opening and your closing. Now, I have a few words after, but you go right ahead, sir.
This discussion tonight certainly brings back the memories of our TNC discussion, where we filled this room with TNC drivers who thought we were trying to run them out of their business, who thought we were trying to prohibit them from making a living here in the city of Kenner. And that, be as it was the furthest thing from the truth. We had an entity that was not legally operating in the city, and we were trying to do our due diligence, as Mr. Morrell will say, that's what we're here to do. So our job was to try to find the words and the means to make them legal, but still keep standards that would be applicable. So we heard the same discussions, and I believe me, I hear the passion and accept that the passion is there. But the discussion tonight is not, do we not want a Hispanic Resource Center or any center? It's, do we have to spend upwards of $800,000 plus to build a building, to then have to find monies to outfit it with furniture and fixings, and then additional staff, because the one person that is at the current center is not going to be able to manage that one building by themselves. They're going to need additional staff. So now we have increase in the city's operating expenses. The operating expenses of now maintaining this building that has been built and the additional supplies and staff. That comes out of the operating account, and without any dedicated revenue stream, newly dedicated to do that, we have to take it out of our operating account that we have now, which means we on this council are going to decide which area do we cut from to build that gap up. So what I see is it's not entirely the issue of do we want or not want an Hispanic Resource Center. It's what is going to be the right fit for the city to manage a Hispanic Resource Center. I agree, the one we have is dilapidated and needs to be done, something done. I'm not going to put out there just yet what, because we have a lot of ideas. We want to do something. As you saw earlier, I introduced a piece of legislation to speed up the process of getting it on first reading tonight so we could hopefully vote at the next meeting and presumably approve it, to purchase a piece of land next to it at a very, very reasonable price that would now give us combined property to do something with the Hispanic Resource Center right there. So is the question now, is there something wrong with that location to do it there, or do we have to do it at this location that's perceived as the place it needs to be now? It seems to be, from the comments of these council members to my right here, that we need to do it at this location where they say it's been promised. Well, as you watch TV from time to time, there's a gentleman that will come on TV by the name of Raphael Goenichi. And he has a saying: if it don't pass the smell test, something's wrong. Well, I don't like the smell of what I'm hearing from two council members pushing that we put this building on that piece of land. There is a tremendous ethical violation here. No way, shape, or form can this council vote to do anything that ingratiates us personally. Both of these members own land immediately alongside of that property. So putting up a building that's going to raise their property values is ingratiating them. I will not, in no way, shape, or form, proceed in that direction to do that. I wouldn't expect any council member to do it for me if I was pushing for something that would give me financial gratitude. So the issue here is, let's go back to the original land that we have the center on, buy the piece next door, and build something there. Then we can accomplish both goals. Everybody that wants a Hispanic Resource Center and have a new center will get it at that location where it's been. As Councilman Reyno was pointed out about the congressional record, great. It says we started a Hispanic Resource Center at that location. Didn't say somewhere else. We started it at that location. So that's what's in the record, and that's where it should stay. So my opinion right now is, let's get back to what we're trying to do here, is put some money back into promoting our capital accounts for our police department, our fire department, and protect our loss fund to pay bills that we do have outstanding legal bills that were generated by lawsuits filed by two members up here that did cost the city monies. So we have to pay those bills. So please, and Mayor, I don't want to cut you off. I know earlier I had yielded to you, and it seems like we would get, if there's anything you needed to add, I'd like to yield back to him.
Council Chairman, you mind if I answer that?
You're not going to.
Council Chairman, can I answer that?
Can you answer? What was the question?
Oh, I was just, because earlier in my opening, as I was trying to open, I had yielded some time to the mayor, and it got kind of switched around. So I was just asking if he had finished what he wanted to present to us. So I'm giving him some more of my closing time.
No, we can accommodate the mayor any time, Councilman.
Okay,
Mayor's
well, that's
on.
fine. I can accommodate.
Are you finished?
Like I said, I urge the passage of this tonight for the main reasons that this is what needs to be done so that we can move forward with making the city better and not put anybody up here in any ethical problems.
I mean,
Thank you. Mayor Zahn, you have the
I would
floor.
add that, something that got lost in translation, like I started off this speech tonight, that this has been a campaign of miscommunication. I have never said I wanted to close the Hispanic Resource Center. I showed tonight that we wanted to purchase a piece of property. I'm not going to go on and on about it, but some of the comments that were made about me supporting the $91,000 I signed off on. I signed off on that because the city was already obligated for the change order. We had to legally sign off on that. As Councilman Reyno continuously brings that up, and I guess he's whispering in everybody's ear because I just saw him handed something by his wife on that legislation, that's why I did it. I did it because I had to. It doesn't show that I show support of that building. So don't be misled by the Pied Piper that is misleading you or attempting to mislead you again. By the way, telling three council people and being one is probably an ethical violation. I agree with you with the other ethical violations, too, of why so close to his piece of property. At the same time, I agree with Richard Brown, who came up here. We need to buy that, well, he didn't say this, but I say buy the piece of property, and on that new piece of property, as we tear down the old building, we will build a multicultural resource center, a resource center for everyone. It can have a division for the Hispanic population. It can have numerous divisions, senior, veterans, for everybody. I agree with Mr. Al Morella, who brought up some of those points. I think my job is to bring all that together and work with a local businessman and put those portable buildings out there that are not trailers that are falling apart. Portable buildings today, if you see, I saw some people from Canada Discovery that came up and spoke. Canada Discovery looks like a permanent situation. It's not. The building they're working out of, believe it or not, is temporary. That would be a beautiful facility on that piece of property that we already own and the one we can purchase. At the same time, keep our Blue Eagle Soccer and other Kenna soccer groups playing on that tot lot and letting those individuals that live in those apartment complexes that probably can't afford to belong to organized sports in Lafayette Park and other areas continue to play at the Pocket Park. My solution, hopefully with you all support, gives everybody what they want. Agrees with Mr. Morella, agrees with Mr. Brown, agrees with other people that came up and spoke tonight, and agreeing with Councilman Segura and you all that wanted to purchase the property tonight. We are not saying destroy and tear down a Hispanic resource center. We need resource centers, but we need them for everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And before we vote, I just like to say a few things. I think sometimes all of us, however position that you have on something, that we tend to hear what we want to hear.
I agree.
Point of order. I have the floor. I have the floor now, ladies and gentlemen. Let me finish talking. You've had your chance. Like I was saying, I think we hear what we want to hear when we are either against something or for something. And we have gone way out of the way for this legislation because it is a touchy subject. When you talk about children, when you talk about people of different races, when you talk about what you perceive as something and what some people say as something, we have the tendency sometimes not to listen to what we're saying. It is our responsibility to manage the monies of you, the citizens of Kenner, to be able to provide accommodations, safety, legal, and all of that. And that's our job. I think today all of us have had to listen to everything. We've added information for our new council people to hear that some of us wasn't privy to. We've had disagreements on some of the things. But the thing that I heard from everyone, it is something that we need, which is the center for this particular, for the city of Kenner. We all agree to that. I don't think anyone ever said we wasn't going to do that. But depending on when you're trying to make your point from either side, you will tend to stick to that, and you will say things to aggravate the other side and to make them believe that is your point. But we have never said that on the city of Kenner. But that's what transpired here today. We've gone from the infrastructure, we've gone from why 20 years ago we haven't done something for the police department, the fire department. All of those things had nothing to do with the legislation we were doing today. But people will say things to get off the subject. The reality is we all agree, the mayor agreed, the administration agreed, the council agreed, that we are going to build a facility to accommodate not only the Hispanic, but the citizens of Kenner, the children of Kenner. We are going to do that. Now, how we get there is the thing that we have to decide upon. And I will say, we have been part of conversations in the past that we started down one way to do something, and because of circumstances out of our control, that we had to adjust. I see now this particular legislation is no different than that. That there are some things we're going to have to adjust to be able to accommodate not only the building, but some other things. So if we agree that we have not done our job or due diligence for the fire department or the police department, when do we start? Do we not start now? Do we wait till next year? If we wait till next year, then people are going to say, why haven't you started? We have to start at some time. It's not our fault. But I think that's what has happened here tonight, that a number of things have been said, a number of emotions, a number of feelings got involved in it, and we wanted to just keep this to the legislation, and it didn't happen that way. May have been partly for my fault, or maybe all of our fault. But never was it said that we're not going to do that. And I think some people may have been told that, some people may have listened and heard that and believed that, but that is not the case, ladies and gentlemen. We will go forward. We will go forward and build a facility to accommodate the children of the city of Kenner. This is just one step going forward. There are many ideas. We all are part of the conversation. I am excited that a number of people came tonight who may have never came to a council meeting to express their ideas and opinions. That is what government is about, to be able to listen. So if we didn't know it before, we know it now, how much or how important it is for some of the things that are going on in the city of Kenner and how we want to improve it. That's where we're at. So in closing, before we vote, I'd just like to say this is not the end of this conversation. The mayor has assured me, he has assured the council, and through his own words tonight, he has assured that we are not going to walk away from this. I just ask that you be a part of the conversation to see how we move forward with this. You may not agree with everything, because I can just tell you before I close, I wasn't a part of the legislation from 2006 that changed it originally. I voted against it. But that's behind me now. We go forward now to do the best that we can. So, Madam Clerk, could you read the ordinance again before we vote, please?
Yes, sir. Item 12B, summary ordinance number 12,317, an ordinance amending the 2017 and 2018 capital budget to allocate $396,500 from the sale of property to capital accounts in the fire department, police department, and the loss fund.
Madam Clerk, we have a correction to make. Councilwoman DeFranchise will not be seconding it. Councilmember Wilmot will be the second on it.
Got it.
So motion by Councilman Segura, second by Councilman Wilmot to accept. Council, please vote. Councilman DeFranchise, just say that, but we're not going into Councilman. Just say you want to abstain. Councilman DeFranchise, I'm going to ask you again to only address your abstain and to stick to that conversation. Please say that and we'll move on. I did. Thank you. Council, please vote.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 5-1. Councilmember Reyno is opposed, and Councilman DeFranchise did not vote.
Did not vote or abstain?
She did not abstain, she just did not vote.
You're not voting, Councilman DeFranchise. Let's make a note of that Councilman DeFranchise just did not vote.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Item 13 is resolutions and motions by council members. Item 13A is a resolution amending Rule 8, Special Meetings of the Council of the Rules of Organization, Business, Order, and Procedure of the Council of the City of Kenner.
Motion by Councilman Segura, second by Councilmember Klein. Councilman Segura, you have the floor.
This legislation I put up, and as sometimes happens when you have a action and then it has a reaction. So this is a reaction to the action that occurred and has been talked about at two other previous meetings about the process of personal service to council members when a special meeting is being called. Our charter clearly says that personal service through a police officer is the means to do that. It also allows for council members to, in writing, waiver that personal service in lieu of the personal service. In many previous special council meetings that we've had, all the council members waived in writing the personal service. At the special meeting that was held to revote on the appointment of the District 5 councilperson, apparently Councilman Reyno chose to have personal service. Now, he explained at the last meeting that he just told the clerk to do what she needed to do. But the reality is, there's an email that I have the copy of where it quote says, "They should have got it right the first time. Have the police serve me in Robert, Louisiana, and here's the lot number of the campsite that I'm at." So what that did was cause the city to incur the expense of sending that police officer out there, as well as the time and gas and wear and tear on the car. That is a complete frivolous waste of taxpayer dollars. That is as transparent as I can tell you why I'm putting this up. No way, shape, or form with today's technology should that have occurred. But with this legislation, what I'm saying, and hopefully get the passage, is that if any member of this council chooses to want to be personally served instead of waivering it in writing, no problem, but they pay for that personal service. That's all. This is just clearly saying that the city should not have to bear the cost of that personal service when the means are there to just acknowledge the meeting and in writing waive the personal service. So with that, that's what the purpose and reaction of this legislation is for.
Councilman Reyno, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to clarify a few things. First and foremost is we have a set of council rules, and this legislation is to amend those council rules. However, those council rules are clear when it comes to service. It says that we need to follow the procedures that are in the charter. And I'll quote it exactly. In rule number 8, it says, "Special meetings of the council may be called by the mayor or president of the council and shall be called by the clerk of the council upon written request of a majority of the members of the council, comma, as provided in the charter." The council rules don't provide the service. The charter provides the service. So I don't think you can amend a council rule and force action based on what is in the charter. The charter is what determines the action. Now, to get to the charter in section 2.21 of our home rule charter, it clearly states that the public notice for a special meeting provided for in section 2.20 must, emphasize, must be served by a police officer of the municipality on the mayor and a majority of the entire authorized membership of the council. It doesn't say that every council member has to be served. It says that it has to be served to a majority of the entire authorized membership of the council. further goes on at the very bottom, it says the mayor or any member may, they have an option, in quote, may, waive notice. If a council member is on vacation, let's say they're on a cruise ship, and let's say there's no communication. Let's say we were blessed this year and we were able to go to Cuba. Cuba does not have AT&T, it does not have Verizon. You're working off of the Cuban cell phone service. And it doesn't, you can't just go there and say, oh, I want to hook up to the, to the cell phone service. It doesn't work that way, okay? So if a council member's out of town and you get 4 of the council members that are served, you just serve the majority. I mean, what is the enforcement of this? If you change council rules, based on the council rules that I read, the enforcement of the council rules is the council president. So the council president is now going to find a fellow council member and create an expense for that council member. Now, I heard Councilmember Segura say, I have a copy of an email. And my response is, if y'all felt like you need to serve me, then serve me. However, the council clerk was not involved because she wasn't at work that day. The city attorney's office is the one that chose to send out a police officer. Did I say send them out? If you need to do that, if that's what you need to do, then send them out. Knowing full well that the charter said they didn't have to serve me. They already had 4 members. You're shooting yourself in the foot here. If you want to change this, then do a proposition and get the people to vote on a charter change. This charter overrules those council rules. This charter has means of enforcement of the charter. If somebody fails to do something in the charter, they, either through the police department or through the mayor, it is another one that could also initiate, our code department can initiate fines or citations, and the court could initiate fines. So naturally, I'm not going to be supporting this. I think this is, I don't think this legislation even makes sense, to be quite honest with you. And I would like to ask the city attorney for their opinion.
Sir, you requested in writing that you be formally served. You said, have them send a police officer to wherever you were. So in accordance with that, that's what was done.
Okay.
The charter does not need to be amended. This is simply asking that if that happens again in the future, that council member be assessed with those costs for that service. That's all it's saying. It doesn't require a charter amendment.
Well, if
It's not a fine, it's not a penalty, it is good government, it is basically asking to recoup those costs, because you could have simply said, I waive service, I won't be there. But you formally asked in your email that you be served by a police officer at whatever camp you were in. And you were in Robert, Louisiana, across the lake. You weren't in Cuba.
I was on a vacation. I was on a vacation
But you asked to
at
be
a
served
campground.
at your vacation location.
So I'm going to stop my vacation and go and handle this business and sign a waiver and get it printed out at a Kinko's or someplace like that and send it. I hear what you're saying.
You said to be formal, you said, I demand that I asked that they serve me in Robert, Louisiana, by a police officer of KPD, because they should have done this in the first place the right way. You could have simply said in your email, I waive service, or I won't be there.
I was not given that option. The option was you had to be served.
Well, sir, you seem to know the charter. You've been a council member for 6 years. We've had special meetings before. It's email. You do it on your phone. I mean,
May waive notice in writing. In writing. Doesn't say by email, doesn't say, it says in writing.
Sir, when the charter was adopted, did we have email in 1974?
Can we just stick to the ordinance itself, and let's address that we're going in another direction again. So Councilman Reno, are you, did the attorney answer your question?
I'm not going to answer that. I'm just going to say that I'm done.
Thank you.
Mr. President.
Thank you. I don't see any lights up right now, and I'm going to say that, you know, based on the legislation, I don't want to get put myself, well, Mr. Brown, sorry about that.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yeah.
I've got to say that I have to agree with Councilman Reyno on this, that this is a terrible piece of legislation. It is something that y'all should bury and run from. You should be ashamed it's even brought up. It's petty politics. It's personal vendetta. I don't think Mr. Sell ever answered Mr. Reyno's question. I think his question was about the legality of this. You cannot effect a fine, what amounts to a fine or financial penalty of any sort against somebody by amending a special rule of order. You cannot do it. It's got to be in the charter or perhaps by ordinance. You cannot, as a professional parliamentarian and as somebody who's also very familiar with the open meetings law and other similar provisions, you cannot impose a fine through a special rule of order, and that's what your council rules are. Robert's Rules of Order is your parliamentary authority. It is crystal clear on that point. It's crystal clear. I would hope the city attorney knows that. It says very plainly that a monetary fine can only be imposed in the bylaws or a higher document. You cannot do it by rule. If you adopt this, it's absolutely worthless. It's meaningless. You cannot do it with a special rule of order. You could do it by amending the charter. You could perhaps do it by an ordinance. I'm not weighing in on that. You can do it by amending the charter. You cannot do it by a special rule. This is something y'all need to kill and bury. It really has no place even coming up. But I would like Ms. Roussel's opinion as to whether she thinks the city can legally impose a fine on a councilman and make him reimburse the city for the cost of serving him through a change in the council rules. And especially when the charter says, as Mr. Reyno pointed out, it's only necessary to serve a majority of the council members. You do not have to serve them all. There was no need to serve him in the particular case that brought this about.
I believe I answered Councilman Reyno's question, and I'll answer your question. I don't see this as a fine. I don't see this as a penalty. I don't think the word fine or penalty is in the legislation at all. I think it is simply a means of getting reimbursement for costs that are incurred. The council member requested that he be formally served, Mr. Brown. That was his request in his email to the council clerk.
I know it was. I'm asking you
Okay,
if you think it's legal.
Am I supposed to interpret it differently than what he said? It said clearly, have KPD serve me at Robert, Louisiana.
All right, you called it a reimbursement. I will say you cannot require a reimbursement through a special rule of order either. I don't care what term you try to apply to it. You cannot do it through amending the council rules. You have to either amend the charter or possibly through an ordinance. You cannot do it through a council rule. You cannot extract a monetary payment, no matter what you call it, through amending the rule. And it's just a bad policy. It's not even necessary to serve all the council members. Well, we shouldn't even be discussing it. I really hope y'all just vote this down and move on. And all of these personal attacks against other council members, attacking their motives, it is totally out of order. Mr. Chairman, I hope you will start enforcing the rules of order and not allow those attacks on your fellow council members' motives. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. And like I was saying about this, I will not be supporting it. I agree with Mr. Brown. I agree with Councilman Reyno that this I don't want to get in the position to start determining whether a council member is available, if he's not available. I don't want to put myself in that position, nor I don't think anyone else should. I think this is something that the way it is in the charter, the way it reflects that it doesn't have to have to go to everyone to do what we want to do. I am comfortable with the charter rule right now, so I'm only going to say that I will not be supporting this, and that's my position on it. Thank you. I don't see any more lights. Madam Clerk, could you read it one more time?
Yes, sir. Item 13A is a resolution amending Rule 8, Special Meetings of the Council of the Rules of Organization, Business, Order, and Procedure of the Council of the City of Kenner.
Motion by Councilman Segura, second by Councilman Klein. Council, please vote.
Mr. Chairman, motion fails 4-3. Council members Wilmot, Carroll, DeFrances, and Reno are opposed. Item 13B is a resolution assuming responsibility and liability for inspections performed by Kenner Fire Prevention Bureau.
Motion by Councilmember DeFrances, second by Councilmember Wilmot. Council, please vote.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 13C is a resolution calling a public hearing to determine whether the structures located at 3344 Maryland Avenue in Kenner, Louisiana, shall be abated by repair, rehabilitation, demolition, or removal.
Motion by Councilmember Segura, second by Councilmember Klein. Council, please vote.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 13D is a resolution calling a public hearing to determine whether the structures located at 3511 Arkansas Avenue in Kenner, Louisiana shall be abated by repair, rehabilitation, demolition, or removal.
Motion by Councilman Reno, second by Councilman Klein. Council, please vote.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 13E is a resolution calling a public hearing to determine whether the structures located at 3044 Jasper Street in Kenner, Louisiana shall be abated by repair, rehabilitation, demolition, or removal.
Motion by Councilman Carroll, second by Councilman Wilmot. Council, please vote.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 13F is a resolution authorizing the placement for temporary signs on public property for St. Elizabeth Ann Seton School.
Motion by Councilwoman Hand, second by Councilman Klein. Council, please vote.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 13G is a resolution authorizing the advertisement for sealed bids for drainage improvements for University City subdivision areas, Phase 3, two-lane Kilgore, two-lane drive from Houston Place to Kilgore Place, and Kilgore Place from two-lane drive to Northwestern Drive. State project number H.010107, Kenner Public Works number 2014-002C-RB, in accordance with plans and specifications prepared by Hartman Engineering Incorporated for the Department of Public Works.
Motion by Councilwoman Hand, second by Councilman Klein. Council, please vote.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 13H is a resolution accepting the resignation of Al Borg and appointing Tahir Ahmed to the City of Kenner Planning and Zoning Commission.
Motion by Councilman Reno, second by Councilman Wilmot. And before we vote, I'd just like to say that Mr. Borg, I got an opportunity to know him a little bit closer during his tenure when we had the German Festival in Rivertown. Also, he was always supportive of different events going on through District 1. So I'd like to personally thank him for his services, for his support for the German organization, support to the city of Kenner. We had some wonderful years, and I wish you well, Mr. Borg. Motion by Councilman Reno. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also want to thank Al for, he accepted the position for that. And when he got up here to his first meeting, Al wears hearing aids in both ears. And he called me, he says, I was asking everybody, what did they say, what did they say? It was something about the room, the way it was set up. he couldn't hear the questions or the answers. So he called me, he says, I really feel bad, I really wanted to do this, but he says, I don't know what it is, but I'm having hearing issues at that particular location. So that's the reason that he resigned after one meeting, but I do thank him for stepping up, and I also thank Mr. Ahmed, who is a longtime District 3 resident, for stepping up and accepting the position for the Planning and Zoning Commission. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman. Motion by Councilman Reyno, second by Councilman Wilmot to accept. Council, please vote.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 14 is items removed from the consent agenda. We have none. Item 15 is acceptance of contracts and similar matters approved by the mayor. Item 15A is a resolution approving Amendment Number 2 to the agreement with Rotolo Consultants Incorporated, doing business as RCI for the Laketown Median Landscape Maintenance Program, increasing the agreement cap by $30,547 to $122,188, and to extend the contract time by 1 calendar year.
Motion by Councilman Reyno, second by Councilwoman DeFranchis. Council, please vote. Oh, sorry about that. Councilman Reyno, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just would like the administration to clarify that this $30,000 increase, we're not paying $122,188 a year, that this is the cost of the annual. Ms. Fauché, could you?
Yes, that's correct. If that were what they were paying, I would quit this job right now. We're going to do this for one more year. We had looked at the thought of having our Public Works Department, the landscaping folks, take this over. The conclusion was we didn't actually have enough time to get people in there with the right skill set. So we're going to extend this for 1 year, but during that year, we're also looking to identify those who have the capacity to maintain it, because it's an extra nice. It's not just your regular sort of mow it and flat flower bed. But so the Public Works Department is charged over the next year to secure the proper personnel so that the year following the expiration of this contract, we'll be able to pick this up ourselves.
Right, and this runs from Vintage all the way to the levee in Laketown.
Yes,
so
sir.
it's a large section.
A large and a very high volume, lots of different foliage and things. So
Thank
really
you,
great.
ma'am. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Ms. Fauché. Motion by Councilman Reyno, second by Councilwoman DeFranchis. Council, please vote.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 15B is summary ordinance number 12,312, an ordinance accepting the lowest responsive bid received from W.J. Blocher Company, LLC, for an annual contract to supply labor only for electrical work in accordance with seal bid number 17-6408, and an amount not to exceed $300,000 for the Department of Parks and Recreation.
Motion by Councilman Carroll, second by Councilmember Segura. Council, please vote.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 15C is summary ordinance number 12,313, an ordinance accepting the lowest responsive bid received from Site 1 Landscape Supply for an annual contract to supply white field marking paint to be used at various recreation facilities in accordance with letter bid number 17-1564, and an amount not to exceed $20,000 for the Department of Parks and Recreation.
Motion by Councilmember Klein, second by Councilwoman Hand. Council, please vote.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 15D is summary ordinance number 12,314, an ordinance accepting the lowest responsive bid received from E.H. Stager Tennis Court Construction to furnish and install resurfacing at the Rosemary Minor Park and Splash Park tennis courts in accordance with letter bid number 17-1563, and an amount not to exceed $10,546 for the Department of Parks and Recreation.
And before we vote, I'd just like to say that at the Rosemary Minor for this tennis court is over 25 years. It's in deplorable condition. We're in the process, along with the city administration and recreation, of doing some renovations at the Rosemary Minor Park. It is coming together fantastic. This is just one more added piece to it, and there are a couple of more things to go, but something that we, the city of Kenner, can be proud of. And it is not only just for District 1, it's for anybody with a tennis racket. Just let me put it out there. Motion by Councilman Carroll, second by Councilman Wilmot. Council, please vote.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 15E is summary ordinance number 12,315, an ordinance accepting the responsive bid received from Frischertz Electric Company Incorporated in the amount of $3,368,000 for the wastewater treatment plant number 3 generator banking project in accordance with seal bid number 17-6407 for the Department of Public Works.
Motion by Councilwoman DeFranchis, second by Councilmember Wilmot. Council, please vote.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 15F is a resolution approving change order number 3, final, to the contract with Smith Construction Company dated October 26, 2016, regarding the Kenner City Hall Building D elevator addition for 133-day increase in contract time and a net decrease of $18,000 in contract time, resulting in a total contract amount of $318,200, and to accept the contract as complete for the Department of Public Works.
Motion by Councilmember Segura, second by Councilmember Reyno. Council, please vote.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 15G is a resolution approving the Fifth Amendment to the Cooperative Endeavor Agreement between the City of Kenner and the State of Louisiana regarding Lake Trail Drainage Improvement, Planning and Construction, FP&C, project number 50-MF1-13-06.
Motion by Councilmember Reyno, second by Councilmember Klein. Council, please vote. Councilman Reyno, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can the administration just give the public a little bit of information of what this is? Tom, maybe? We're on 15G.
We flipped a coin and I won. When the legislature funds for capital projects, they do it by sale of bonds. And when, much like when we change account numbers on our budget, basically the bonds that were being used to pay off the last part of this particular project, the bonds changed. So what they did was they sent us basically a change order, but it wasn't a change order for any substance. It was a change order that we have paid off the last part of this project by these 2 bonds instead of this other bond. So the change really is changing the bond used by the state to pay off the last portion of this. So this is a completed project, and the capital outlay this year from the state, the only capital outlay that we got for the City of Kenner was to close out this account. So,
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fauché.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Motion by Councilman Reyno, second by Councilman Klein. Council, please vote.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 16 is ordinances and resolutions in summary for first reading. Item 16A is an ordinance regarding amendments to the Kenner's Unified Development Code, ordinance number 11,062, adopted March 17, 2016, regarding the parking and storage of recreational vehicles and recreational watercraft. Item 16B is an ordinance establishing the Kenner Fire Prevention Bureau. Item 16C is an ordinance amending various portions of the Kenner Code of Ordinances, Chapter 15, related to temporary traffic regulations in the City of Kenner. Item 16D is an ordinance accepting the lowest responsive bid received from Walter J. Barnes Electric Company Incorporated, received November 8, 2017 by the Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development in the amount of $619,293 for Veterans Boulevard lighting, Airport to Loyola, state project number H.010973, Kenner Public Works project number 2014-008-SL for the Department of Public Works. Item 16E is an ordinance approving an engineering amendment number 2 with Linfield, Hunter, and Junius Incorporated for the wastewater treatment plant number 3 improvements project to increase the construction fee by $14,420 for additional construction administration services for the Department of Public Works. Item 16F is an ordinance accepting the responsive bid received from Industrial and Mechanical Contractors Incorporated in the amount of $150,360 for the 10th and Maria project in accordance with seal bid number 17-6409 for the Department of Public Works. Item 16G is an ordinance approving a re-subdivision of Lot 404A, part of ARPANT Lot 437 and part of ARPANT Lot 438, Old Kenner Subdivision, Kenner Jefferson Parish, Louisiana, into lots 438A and 403A, which lots are owned by Brookwood Webster LLC. Item 16H is an ordinance approving the lease of the existing building and improvements located on Lot 17C, Square 40, Old Kenner subdivision, bearing the municipal address of 409A Williams Boulevard, Kenner, Jefferson Parish, Louisiana, for the sum of $650 per month for a 12-month term. Item 16I is an ordinance approving the lease of the existing building and improvement located on portions of Lot W-3, Plot H, Kenner Orleans subdivision, Kenner, Jefferson Parish, Louisiana, bearing the municipal address of 402 Williams Boulevard for the sum of $1,050 per month for a 12-month term. Item 16J is an ordinance amending ordinance number 11,195 to provide for rental of Buddy Lawson Gym for repast receptions and to establish fees for equipment rental at Kenner facilities. Item 16K is amendments to the Kenner's Unified Development Code, Ordinance 11,062, adopted March 17, 2016, regarding the parking and storage of recreational vehicles and recreational watercraft. Item 17 is reports from the council and our special committees.
I don't see any lights. I'll just like to say that, you know, I was not here at the last meeting. I'd like to thank Councilman Wilmot, did a fantastic job. But in that, we had just had the Thanksgiving, a number of Thanksgiving events in the city of Kenner. First being the senior Thanksgiving dinner at the Buddy Lawson Gym that has been going on for close to 30 years. Recently, for the past 2 or 3 years, we renamed it after a lady who did a lot of the front work early on before it was even the city of Kenner. She did it out of our own, Miss Clara Webb, out of our own funds and from our family. So we thought it was appropriate to name it after her. We've always had a fantastic support for this event, and it was well attended. Well over 200 of our seniors from all over the city of Kenner. And I like to take the time, and I was mentally wrote down a number of people who supported it. I'm sure I'm going to forget someone, but I think it's important to be able to show the people who support different events in the city of Kenner. And the first would be CRC, Mr. Ronnie Main, who's always everywhere in the city of Kenner. Assurance Healthcare, Mr. Ron Tassan, that's his company. Mr. Mike Menza of MMI Catering. BFM, Mr. Ralph Faltenberg. Mr. Tony Gendusa, fine restaurant in Rivertown. Ms. Charmaine Price. Miss Melody Lawson and her family. The Four Cs organization from Rivertown. Miss Carla Tyson from the City of Kenner Recreation Department. The judges June Daringsburg, Judge Mark Johnson, Judge Adrian Adams, and Judge Lee Faulkner also supported during the event. Resources for Independent Living, the Lincoln Manor Civic Association, and our special guest, the John Clancy Majuri Elementary School, who did a fantastic job, along with Washington Monastery. These are 5th, 6th graders that came out and helped serve a bunch of energy to be able to walk the whole entire event, to serve the seniors, to help clean up. Anything that you asked them to do, they did a fantastic job, and they've been supporting for the last couple of years, and we could not get it done without their young legs, that's for sure. The Recreation Department and all of the individuals supporting it. The mayor and his administration always supporting to make sure that the facility is clean, pristine, and to be able to support when we can for our seniors, not only at this event, but Mr. Morella did mention the Council of Aging. That is a building we have not forgotten, Mr. Al, and it is something that's on our agenda to do, and we are looking at that. The General Services Department, fantastic job in setting it up. The Council of Aging with Miss Mabel, always being supportive. Ms. Darylyn from District 3 was there to support. Ms. Karen Poche, and last but not least, my assistant, Ms. Kelly Harper, who does most of the work. I show up and help talk a little bit, but she does a lot of coordination for the city administration and all the people who I just mentioned. The second one would be for the Thanksgiving food basket. I'm going to associate it with the food bank, and I will just say that the city of Kenner, you know, you say what you want about us, but I think for different venues, for different times of the year, we as an administration, as the mayor, it was an event that we provided through the listing from the food bank different individuals, different families who have been going through hardships. And I'd like to thank the mayor, the administration, also Mr. Rodney Main. Mr. Mayor, you may want to elaborate a little bit more. I'm not sure how many people we serve because, again, I was not here. But I got a number of calls from our office saying that this was something that for some people who would not have had anything to be able to serve their family and their friends. So even though for some of us we are blessed to be able to have that, I think this is something that we as the city of Kenner continue to do. And I'd like to thank the mayor for his support and Mr. Rodney Main. Mr. Mayor.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for your continued support on that, along with the rest of the council, but being in your district and the things that you do there and alerting us to the needs of District 1, just like any other district councilman, but the present needs that District 1 continuously has. We appreciate your support, Councilman Carroll. And of course, Mr. Ronnie Mains, you're right. I mean, what would we do without a Ronnie Mains? He goes from one end of the city to the other. He reaches over to all groups and helps. Mike Ince is telling me it was around 600 families that we actually got to, which that is huge. Those are the things that we need to continue doing. Just the other night, we were going to benefit again for the Kenner Food Bank with the Sippin' with Santa function that happened at Chateau Country Club. I believe that was Tuesday night. That was a great event. We're going to have those proceeds coming in, and Mr. Ronnie Means was there also assisting with that. So 600 families, that's huge. Congratulations to, like I said, Ronnie Means, but everybody that was part of that, and again, for your office also for helping us with it.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for all the council members that had the opportunity to, because it means a lot. I mean, for us to go down there and to talk to the people from all parts of the city, because we sometimes become territorial, myself included, but it's good to be able to go in different parts of the city to meet the people from the different areas, to be able to see the appreciation that they have, and just to talk to people, man. That is something that will never get old, and I think and hope that we continue to do that.
If I may just say something very quickly, I just want to thank Mike Ince, the Department of our Community Development, the ladies and gentlemen who were there. Mike Wetzel also showed up to volunteer all day long. I was there as well, and it was really a wonderful turnout and very well received. And it, you know, and Ronnie Mains, of course, goes without saying how generous and what a great community partner he and CRC are. But anyway, Mike, great job out there with the community development group.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Fortunato. And also the ladies that support the food bank, you know, not only what they do during the day for the food bank, but this is also an opportunity for them to support very well, and all of us that we do. And I think it's something special that the city of Kenner should be proud of. I don't, Councilwoman DeFrances, I think you had something.
Been a push poll that's been going out that I have nothing to do with. I've gotten innumerable phone calls from people. In fact, whoever's doing it is purposely trying to annoy people, because I've never heard of a push poll where if someone on a landline doesn't answer and has a voice recorder. I had someone tell me that they got 3 calls in a row. If they'd answer the first one, they'd call in an hour, then they'd call in an hour later and an hour later, which is despicable. And of course, people called to tell me what the poll was about. But what was also interesting to me was the way some people who maybe picked up the phone and only heard 3 words thought it was coming from me. And I want to set the record straight. The first 3 words were, "Hi, I'm Amber, Maria," and then the lady was annoyed because it's Christmas and I am totally in support of her. She had no reason to be annoyed. Or trying to say whether or not I'm doing a good, would they vote for me, and am I doing a good job? And maybe you ought to look for somebody else, basically, is the gist of it. My point is, please know, I have 0 to do with it. I don't know who's doing it. I don't even care who's doing it. They should stop, not because it's about me, but because it's unfair to people during the holiday season to do that. And especially, I've never heard of a push poll where you call people every hour until they answer. That is unacceptable. There should be a rule against that in the city of Kenner. No one should be disturbed that way. So again, I am telling you, I don't know who it is. I have nothing to do with it, and it's really negative about me, so why would I be involved in any way, shape, or form? So my apology to the people of Kenner that have to put up with it, that you shouldn't have to, and all I can tell you is I have nothing to do with it. So thank you for letting me say that. I did mention it to the mayor as well.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir. Item 18 is new business. This was taken at an earlier juncture in the meeting. Item 19 is unfinished business and/or motions to reconsider or remove from a tabled position. We have none. Item 20 is persons wishing to address the council on special subject matters.
Okay, I don't have a list, so I'm not sure if that means that. I didn't think that was possible. Not a problem. Yes, we have a few people. Dr. Vince is gone, I believe. If he's not, he was on there first. I think he's gone. Okay. Ms. Scully, I believe also is gone. Mr. Nathaniel Phillips, I believe is also gone.
No, that's him.
Oh, sorry about that, sir. I've been kicking you off the mic since the whole meeting.
Well, you're certainly entitled to. I appreciate the.
We're going to give you a couple extra minutes for that. Go ahead. Name and address, Mr. Nathaniel.
Nathaniel Phillips, 3927 Iberville in Orleans Parish. I appreciate the opportunity to address you, but it's moot at this point after the vote on 3101 Jasper. So maybe 2 council meetings from now.
Yes. And like I said, we did what we did with that. Don't run away from it.
I understand
We will be addressing it, I'm sure, within the next month.
And thank you again for your time.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Al, name and address.
Al Morella, 4260 East Loyola Drive, 5th District, 45 years. I want to respond to some comments that was made in here at the November 2nd meeting. I'm going to direct this to you, Councilman Carroll. Not just to you, but whoever follows you as council chairman. We had a little back and forth on November the 2nd. I just want to remind you of a couple of things. Number one, the public comment portion of this meeting, special subject matter. The speakers can discuss any subject they choose to. 2, as far as Kenner business, city business, I want to remind you that no matter where you live in Jefferson Parish, anything that goes on in this parish is the business of everybody, of every taxpayer in this parish. And I'm going to tell you why. Because our tax dollars are scattered from the St. Charles Parish line all the way down to Grand Isle. Now, I got some more comments. I want to direct this to you, Councilman Wilmot. At the last meeting, when you served as council chairman, you gave your little speech before the meeting started. And you talked about, I don't engage in personalities either down here. Never have, okay? All I engage in is business. Now, however, I do want to say this. Whatever elected official does in their personal life is their business. But whenever something in their personal life becomes scandalous and it makes the evening news and it's public, then it becomes the public's business. So I want to let you know that right now. Now, I want to also address this to the chief. Article in the Times-Picayune on November the 10th about the armed robbery that happened in our city. The 2 roofers working hard for a living to put food on the table for their family was a direct result from the insanity that came out of Baton Rouge in this last legislative session. This was a career criminal that was put back on the street to continue his life of crime, and that's what it resulted in. I support the chief 250% on his opposition to that insanity. And I want to tell you something, Chief, as a registered voter who votes in every local, state, and federal election there is, I know who the ones are responsible, and they're going to be held accountable come Election Day. And I support you on your comments you made concerning that issue 250%. I can't say it enough. Now, anybody got any comments, any questions for me?
Mr. Wilmot, Councilman Wilmot, you have the floor.
You're not referring to me personally. You're referring to my outline that I gave as acting chairman at the day, I believe.
That's exactly right. That's what I just said.
Okay, just making sure
I
we're
said
clear.
it when I directed
Making
the
sure we're
comments
clear,
to you,
because we didn't
Councilman.
like the way those words flowed out, Al.
No, I don't have enough
Thank you.
time to slow down. I only got 3 minutes.
Ms. Morell, I have a comment too, as far as related for the November 2nd meeting, when we obviously had a disagreement about what you could and cannot say. I realize we are a part of Jefferson Parish. I also realize we are the city of Kenner Incorporated. We have our own charter, our own rules, just like the city of Harahan and the city of Gretna. And I would not want you to come here to start talking about things about their city at the city of Kenner meeting. So we're going to respectfully disagree that our agenda, our meetings are for information that relates to the city of Kenner. And as long as it relates to that, you and I have much time to talk about it. But if it's not about the city of Kenner business, then I will ask that we refrain from that and discuss it in the place, in the venue that is best fits.
I got any time left for?
You got a minute. You got a minute.
Okay, I'd like to respond to that. First of all, I don't attend Harahan council meetings. I only attend 2, the parish council meetings and this one. And when most of our councilmen serve their term on this council, they wind up on the Jefferson Parish Council and vice versa. So the business of Jefferson Parish and the business of Kenner, and whenever it involves our tax dollars, whether it's Harahan or Grand Isle, Lafitte, or wherever, it's our business to discuss, as far as I'm concerned, at any venue that we attended. But those are the 2 meetings that I attend. I don't attend those. I have a conflict with my schedule, and that's why.
All right, Mr. Al, I appreciate that.
Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. and Mrs. Martinez. They left. Mr. Brown, you're one more time. Name and address, Mr. Brown.
Thank you. By the way, Mr. Morell is missing a real show if he doesn't attend the Harahan council meetings. Believe me, I started to say it makes us look good or you guys look good, but you guys really do look good, and I like to see genuine disagreement. Richard Brown, 824 Sessions Lane in Kenner. I wanted to come up and state why I was concerned about the introduction of the ordinance that the city or someone wanted to, I guess Mike Segura sponsored it, wanted to add